trigger finger. He stepped in to stop a murder. He ended up starting a war. Chapter 1. The bay horse stepped lively, lifting its hooves with a rhythm that said it knew where the next bucket of oats was coming from. It wasn't dragging its toes in the dust or blowing hard with that wet, rattling sound that meant the water was gone and the miles were getting long. It moved with a snap, ears pricked forward, watching the trail wind through the mesquite like it was looking for a reason to run. Eldridge Sample sat deep in the saddle, letting his body sway with the animal's gait. He pushed his hat back with a thumb, letting the sun hit his face. It was hot, the kind of dry, baking heat that turned the skin brown and the mind quiet, but it didn't bother him. He felt good. It was a strange feeling, foreign enough that he took a moment to inventory it, just to make sure he wasn't mistaking heat stroke for happiness. He checked his pockets. In his coat, wrapped in oilcloth, was a pouch of tobacco. Full. Not dust and stems, but long-cut Virginia leaf he'd bought in the last town. Next to it was a box of lucifer matches that rattled when he moved. In his saddlebags, he had 2 cans of peaches, a sack of Arbuckle's coffee beans, and a slab of bacon that was salted heavy enough to last a week. He had a clean shirt. He had a bottle of rye whiskey that was only missing 2 swallows. "We're rich," Eldridge said to the horse. The bay flicked an ear back, acknowledging the sound but not breaking stride. "Don't let it go to your head," Eldridge added. "Rich is temporary. Hungry is permanent." He reached down and patted the horse's neck. The coat was warm, slick but not lathered. The animal was sound. No stone bruises. No splints. Eldridge looked at the horizon. The sky was a sheet of polished tin, blue-white and empty of clouds. To the north, the purple line of the Dragoon Mountains scratched the edge of the world. To the south, the flat expanse of the high desert stretched out until it turned into a blur of heat haze. He was between jobs, between fights, between the time a man pulls a trigger and the time he has to explain why he did it. It was the best time. The quiet time. No posters, Eldridge said. No sheriffs. No widows looking for heroes. He took the tobacco pouch out. He rolled a cigarette one-handed, balancing the reins on his knee. He licked the paper, sealed it, and struck a match on his pommel. The sulfur flared, sharp and yellow in the sunlight. He took a drag. The smoke tasted clean. He thought about where he was going. Sundown. It was a cattle town, a railhead sitting on the edge of the Bar C range. He'd heard there was work there, or at least a game of poker that didn't involve card sharps with sleeves full of aces. He wasn't in a hurry to get there. "We may camp early tonight," Eldridge told the bay. "Find a creek. Maybe shoot a rabbit. Eat the peaches." The horse snorted. "You like peaches," Eldridge said. "I remember. You ate the last can." He rode on. The trail dipped into a wash, the banks high and cut with the scars of flash floods. The air was cooler down here, trapped in the shadow of the red clay walls. Eldridge scanned the rim. Habit. You don't ride through a cut without looking up, even on a good day. Nothing. Just a hawk circling high up, looking for a lizard. He relaxed. He let his hand drift away from the butt of the Colt Peacemaker on his hip. "Peace," Eldridge said. "It's a nice change of pace." He rode out of the wash and up a long, gentle slope. The view opened up again. A sea of sagebrush and ocotillo. He saw a herd of antelope in the distance, white rumps flashing as they ran. They weren't running from him. They were just running because they could. "Fast," Eldridge said. He watched them go. He admired the speed. He admired the freedom. He was thinking about stopping, about pulling up under a mesquite and taking a nap. just because he could. Because nobody was waiting for him, and nobody was chasing him. Then he heard it. It cut through the stillness like a piece of glass drawn across a chalkboard. A scream. It wasn't a bird. It wasn't a coyote. It was human, and it was female. Eldridge pulled the bay up hard. The horse danced, tossing its head, the bit jingling. "Whoa," Eldridge said softly. "Easy." He listened. The wind hissed through the dry grass. An insect buzzed near his ear. Then it came again. No. Clear. Sharp. Terrified. It came from the west. Over the next rise. Maybe a half-mile. Eldridge sat there. The cigarette burned his fingers. He dropped it. He looked at the sky. He looked at the empty trail ahead. "Don't do it," he whispered. He had beans. He had coffee. He had a good day going. A day without trouble. If he rode west, he rode into someone else's problem. A domestic dispute. A breakdown. Or worse. "It's not my business," Eldridge said. The scream came a third time. It wasn't a word this time. It was just a sound of pure, desperate fear. The kind of sound a rabbit makes when the trap snaps shut. Eldridge looked at the bay's ears. They were swiveled toward the sound. The horse knew. Eldridge sighed. It was a heavy, resigned sound. "Damn it," he said. He reached down and checked the Springfield carbine in the scabbard. He loosened it. He checked the Colt. The good day was over. The peace was gone. He gathered the reins. He tightened his grip. "Let's go ruin it," Eldridge said. He kicked the bay. The horse leapt forward. It went from a stand to a gallop in 3 strides, digging its hooves into the hardpan, throwing clods of dirt behind it. Eldridge leaned low over the neck. He let the hat brim pull down tight. He forgot about the peaches. He forgot about the nap. He rode toward the scream, closing the distance between the quiet man he wanted to be and the violent man the world kept asking for. Chapter 2. The scream didn't happen again. That was worse than hearing it. Silence meant the trap had shut or the rabbit had stopped kicking. Eldridge Sample pushed the bay horse. The animal scrambled up the loose shale of a hogback ridge, its hooves striking sparks against the flint. Eldridge kept his weight forward, helping the horse climb, his right hand resting on the walnut grip of the Colt. He crested the rise. The land dropped away into a deep, jagged arroyo carved by water that only ran once a year. The bottom was a mess of tumbled boulders and driftwood bleached white as bone. He saw the dust first, a cloud hanging in the still air. Then he saw the violence. It was a tableau of bad intentions frozen in the heat. A buggy lay on its side, one wheel spinning slowly in the air, the spokes flashing in the sun. Ideally, a buggy didn't belong in a wash like this, which meant it had been run off the road and dragged here. The horse that had pulled it was gone, cut loose or run off. A man lay in the dirt near the wreck. He was wearing a black suit that was gray with dust now. He was face down, his arms spread wide. He wasn't moving. A leather satchel had spilled its guts next to him, papers fluttering in the slight breeze like wounded birds. But Eldridge didn't look at the dead man. He looked at the living. 3 men. One was mounted on a nervous sorrel, holding the reins of 2 other horses. He was watching the rim, but he was looking the wrong way. He was looking east, back toward the trail. The other 2 were on the ground. One was standing, laughing. He was a big man, heavy in the gut, holding a quirt. The 3rd man was on top of the woman. She was fighting. She wasn't screaming anymore, because she was too busy trying to breathe and bite at the same time. She was on her back in the sand, kicking, clawing at the man's face. Her riding habit was torn at the shoulder, the heavy green velvet ripped away to reveal white linen underneath. The man on top of her was trying to pin her wrists. He wasn't hurrying. He was enjoying the struggle. "Hold still, honey," the man grunted. "You're just making it last longer." "Let her kick," the man with the quirt said. "I like a little spirit." Eldridge didn't shout a warning. He didn't fire a shot in the air. He wasn't a marshal anymore, and he wasn't interested in arresting anyone. He was just a man who had his nap ruined. He nudged the bay. The horse slid down the embankment. It was a steep drop, 20 feet of loose dirt. The horse sat on its haunches and surfed, a cascade of gravel rattling down ahead of them. The noise alerted the man on the sorrel. He spun his horse. He saw Eldridge coming down the slope like a rock slide. "Company," the rider yelled. He went for his gun. Eldridge leveled the Springfield he had pulled from the scabbard. No, the carbine was too long for the drop. He used the Colt. He fired. Boom. The shot was deafening in the confined space of the wash. The bullet hit the rider in the chest. It punched him backward over the cantle of his saddle. He flailed, his boots catching in the stirrups, and the sorrel bolted, dragging him 10 feet before he shook loose. The man on the ground, the one with the quirt, spun around. He looked at his friend, dying in the dirt. He looked at Eldridge. He didn't freeze. He was a professional. He dropped the quirt and drew his pistol. Eldridge thumbed the hammer. Click. He fired again. The bullet hit the man in the stomach. It wasn't a clean kill shot. It was a gut shot. The man doubled over, dropping his gun. He grabbed his belly, falling to his knees, making a sound like a deflating bellows. The third man, the one on the woman, rolled off her. He scrambled backward, crab-walking in the sand, trying to get away from the woman and the madman on the horse. He was fast. He was skinny, with a face that looked like a hatchet blade. He scrambled to his feet, pulling a pistol from a cross-draw holster. "Don't!" Eldridge yelled. The man fired. A snapshot wide and high. The bullet whined off a rock near the bay's ear. The horse shied, rearing. Eldridge fought the reins, keeping his seat. The man turned and ran. He didn't run for cover. He ran for the horses. He grabbed the reins of a black gelding that was dancing near the wreck. He vaulted into the saddle. Eldridge brought the colt down. The horse was moving. The man was low over the neck. He fired. The man jerked. His left shoulder dipped. He let out a yelp, but he didn't fall. He spurred the horse. "Lefty!" the man shouted, or maybe he was just cursing. He kicked the horse into a gallop, tearing down the wash, rounding a bend, and vanishing into the dust. Eldridge held his fire. He had 2 rounds left in the cylinder, and the target was gone. He looked around the wash. The first man, the rider, was dead. He lay twisted in the brush, eyes open, staring at the sun. The second man, the one with the gut shot, was curled in a ball, moaning. He was out of the fight. Eldridge holstered the Colt. He calmed the bay, stroking the damp neck. "Easy," he said. "Work's done." He dismounted. He walked to the woman. She hadn't moved. She was still lying on her back, staring up at the sky. Her chest was heaving. Her hair, dark and thick, had come loose from its pins and was spread out in the dirt like a fan. Eldridge stopped 5 feet away. He took off his hat. "Ma'am," he said. She sat up. She didn't swoon. She didn't cry. She sat up fast, scrambling backward until her back hit the wheel of the overturned buggy. She looked at him with eyes that were wide, dark, and utterly furious. She reached into her boot. She pulled out a small knife. A skinning blade. "Stay back," she hissed. Eldridge stopped. He held his hands out, palms open. "I'm not with them," Eldridge said. "I'm the interruption." She looked at him. She looked at the dead man. She looked at the man, groaning in the dirt. "You killed them," she said. "Two of them," Eldridge corrected. "One got away. The skinny one." "Lefty," she said. The name tasted like poison in her mouth. "His name is Lefty. He works for my father." "Your father hires bad help," Eldridge said. She lowered the knife, but she didn't put it away. She tried to stand up. She wobbled. Her dress was torn, exposing the white linen of her shift at the shoulder. She pulled the velvet together, trying to cover herself. Her hands were shaking, but her jaw was set. "Are you hurt?" Eldridge asked. "Just bruised," she said. She touched her cheek. There was a red mark there, the imprint of a hand. And dirty. She looked at the man in the suit, lying face down near the buggy. "Mr. Pims," she whispered. She crawled over to him. She touched his shoulder. "Mr. Pims?" She rolled him over. The lawyer had been shot in the back. A single round between the shoulder blades. His spectacles were cracked, hanging from one ear. His eyes were open, surprised. "He's dead," she said flatly. "He never had a chance," Eldridge said. "They hit him from the ridge. Probably the first shot." She looked at the scattered papers. Legal documents. Deeds. Affidavits. They were blowing across the sand, useless now. "They wanted the papers," she said. "They wanted to stop the filing." "Who did?" "My father," she said. "Baron Clay." Eldridge looked at her. He knew the name. Everyone in the territory knew the name. Baron Clay owned the Bar C. He owned the cattle, the water, and most of the politicians south of the Red River. "You're Ruth Clay," Eldridge said. "I am," she said. She stood up. She brushed the dirt from her skirt. "And I suppose you want a reward. I want to know why 3 of your father's hands were trying to assault you in a ditch." "They weren't assaulting me," she said. "They were persuading me to sign." She pointed to a paper that was pinned under a rock. "A quitclaim deed," she said. "Transferring my mother's share of the ranch back to him. He sent Mr. Pims to negotiate. When I refused, he sent Lefty." Eldridge walked over to the gut-shot man. The man was dying. His face was gray, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "You work for Clay?" Eldridge asked. The man looked up. He spat blood. "Go to hell, Drifter," the man whispered. "Already there," Eldridge said. The man convulsed. He died. Eldridge stood up. He looked at Ruth. "We can't stay here," Eldridge said. "Lefty is running. He's going to find friends. He's going to tell them a crazy man on a bay horse just shot up the payroll." "Take me to town," Ruth said. "To sundown. I need to see the sheriff." "The sheriff?" Eldridge looked at the dead men. He looked at the ambush site. "You think the sheriff doesn't know about this?" "He's the law," Ruth said. "I was attacked. My lawyer was murdered." "These men worked for your father," Eldridge said. "Your father owns the ranch. Does he own the sheriff too?" Ruth hesitated. She looked at the dead lawyer. "Sheriff Pogue," she said. He eats dinner at the big house on Sundays." "Then you don't want to go to the sheriff," Eldridge said. "Not yet. Not looking like that. I have to report it." "You have to survive," Eldridge said. "Right now, you're a loose end. And loose ends get tied off." He walked to the bay horse. He tightened the cinch. "I'll take you to town," Eldridge said. "But we aren't going to the jail. We're going somewhere you can get a drink and get your story straight before you talk to the man with the badge." "A saloon?" she asked, wrinkling her nose. "It's public," Eldridge said. "And it has whiskey. You look like you could use both." He mounted up. He held down a hand. "Come on," he said. "Leave Mr. Pims. He isn't going anywhere." Ruth looked at the body. She bent down and picked up a single sheet of paper. She folded it and put it in her bodice. She took Eldridge's hand. He swung her up behind the saddle. She settled against his back. She smelled of lavender water and dust. She was shivering. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Eldridge said. "I just ruined my day off." He turned the horse. He rode out of the wash, leaving the dead men and the broken buggy for the buzzards. He rode toward sundown. A company town. A town owned by a man who would kill his own lawyer to save a deed. Eldridge touched the Colt. He had 2 rounds left. He needed to reload. "Family squabbles," Eldridge muttered. "They're always the messiest." He kicked the horse into a trot, heading for the town where the law was just another employee of the Bar C. Chapter 3. Sundown wasn't just a name. It was a threat painted on a signpost that leaned crookedly against a pile of buffalo bones at the edge of the settlement. Eldridge Sample rode the bay horse past the sign. The town spread out before them, in the long shadows of the late afternoon, a grid of raw lumber and dust that looked like it had been hammered together in a hurry to catch the cattle money before it blew away. Ruth Clay sat behind him, her arms wrapped around his waist. She held herself stiffly, trying not to touch him more than gravity required. She was a client who hadn't hired him yet, riding on a saddle she hadn't paid for. "Stop here," Ruth said. Her voice was right by his ear, tight and commanding. Eldridge didn't stop. He kept the bay moving at a steady walk down the main street. "I said stop," she repeated. "The sheriff's office is there. The brick building." She pointed a gloved hand past his shoulder. Eldridge looked. The jailhouse was substantial, built of red brick that looked out of place among the clapboard shacks. A flag snapped on a pole. A rack of Winchester rifles gleamed in the window behind iron bars. And in front, tied to the hitching rail, were 3 horses. Big horses. Grain-fed. Branded on the left hip. Bar C. "Look at the horses, Miss Clay," Eldridge said. "What about them?" "Look at the brand," Eldridge said. "That look familiar?" She hesitated. She leaned out to see. "They're ranch horses. My father's stock." "Parked in front of the sheriff's door," Eldridge said. "Like they live there." "The deputies ride ranch stock," she said defensively. "My father donates them. To help the county." "He donates the horses," Eldridge said. "He donates the feed. He probably donated the bricks for the wall. That doesn't make Pogue a sheriff. It makes him a foreman with a badge." Eldridge nudged the bay. He rode past the jail. "We are going back," Ruth insisted. She tried to pull on his coat, to turn him. "I need to report the murder. Mr. Pims, he needs to be brought in." Eldridge reached back. He clamped his hand over her wrist. "Quit wiggling," Eldridge said. "You fall off. I'm not picking you up again. I am the injured party." "You're a loose end," Eldridge said. "And if we walk into that office right now, looking like we just crawled out of a fight, Pogue isn't going to take a statement. He's going to take you into custody for your own protection. And then he's going to send a boy to tell your daddy you're ready for pickup. He wouldn't dare. He eats your daddy's steak on Sundays," Eldridge reminded her. He dares whatever the man signing the check tells him to dare. He kept riding. He scanned the street. Every third building had the Bar C brand painted on it somewhere. Bar C General Store. Bar C Livery. Bar C Land Office. He owns the dirt, Eldridge said. He built this town, Ruth said. He brought the railroad. He brought the jobs. And he kills lawyers in ditches, Eldridge said. That's part of the overhead. He felt her stiffen against his back. She didn't like hearing it. She knew it was true. She had seen Pims die, but hearing a drifter say it made it real in a way that hurt. Why are you helping me? She asked. You don't know me. I don't like odds of 3 to 1, Eldridge said. And I don't like men who beat women. Is that all? That's enough for a Tuesday. He spotted the sign he was looking for. The Red Steer. It was a saloon, but it looked more like a fortress. 2 stories of dark wood, a balcony railing that looked solid enough to stop a bullet, and bat-wing doors that were currently swinging shut behind a cowboy who looked like he'd been thrown through them. We're stopping there, Eldridge said. A saloon. Ruth wrinkled her nose. I don't drink in saloons. Ladies don't. Clients do, Eldridge said. I haven't hired you. You're riding my horse, Eldridge said. That's a retainer. He pulled up at the rail. He dismounted. He reached up to help her down. She ignored his hand. She slid off the rump of the horse, landing light on her boots. She dusted off her riding habit. The tear in the shoulder exposed her white chemise. She pulled the velvet together, holding it tight with one hand. I look like a beggar, she whispered. Or worse. You look like you survived, Eldridge said. That's a look people respect. He tied the bay. He checked the street. No one was running. No one was shouting. The news from the arroyo hadn't hit town yet. Lefty was still riding, or bleeding in the brush. Come on, Eldridge said. I can't go in there. You can stay out here, Eldridge said. Wait for Pogue to look out the window and see the Baron's daughter standing in the street with her dress torn. She looked at the jail. She looked at the saloon. You are an insufferable man, she said. I've been told. Eldridge pushed the doors open. He held one side for her. She lifted her chin. She walked in. The Red Steer was cool and dark, smelling of sawdust beer and tobacco smoke. It was early, so the crowd was thin. A few cowhands playing faro. A bartender polishing a glass with a rag that looked greasier than the glass. They all looked up. They saw the drifter in the dust-caked coat. Then they saw the woman. Silence rippled through the room. They knew who she was. You didn't live in Sundown without knowing the Clay family. Miss Ruth? The bartender asked. He stopped polishing. His mouth hung open. Ruth walked to a table in the back corner. She sat down. She put her hands on the table, clasping them together to stop the shaking. Eldridge walked to the bar. Whiskey, Eldridge said. Bottle. 2 glasses. She all right? The bartender asked, leaning in. She looks roughed up. She fell off a horse, Eldridge said. That don't look like a fall. That looks like? It looks like a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses, Eldridge said. His voice was low, hard. Unless you want to discuss it outside. The bartender blinked. He looked at Eldridge's eyes. He decided he didn't want to discuss anything. He grabbed a bottle of rye and 2 glasses. Eldridge took them. He walked to the table. He poured a shot. He slid it to Ruth. Drink, he said. She looked at the amber liquid. I told you. I don't. It's medicine, Eldridge said. Drink it. She picked up the glass. Her hand trembled, sloshing a little over the rim. She tossed it back. She coughed. Her eyes watered. She slammed the glass down. "Better?" Eldridge asked. "It burns," she gasped. "It cauterizes," Eldridge said. He poured himself one. He sipped it. It was cheap, but it did the job. "Now," Eldridge said, "you're safe. For the moment. Nobody is shooting at you." "Mr. Pims is dead," she said. "He's lying in the dirt." "We'll send the undertaker," Eldridge said. "Later. Right now, I need to know the layout. You said your father wants you to sign." "He wants the land," Ruth said. "The Double Creek section. It was my mother's dowry. It has the best water. And you own it." "She left it to me," Ruth said. "In her will." He thought he owned it all, but the deed was specific. "It goes to the blood heir, not the spouse." She touched her bodice, where she had hidden the paper. "He tried to buy it," she said. "For pennies. When I said no, he got angry. Angry enough to kill a lawyer. Angry enough to kill anyone who says no to him," Ruth said. "He's not used to it." "And you?" Eldridge asked. "Are you used to saying no?" She looked at him. The alcohol had put a little color back in her cheeks. "I am learning," she said. Eldridge leaned back in his chair. He watched the door. "You can't go home," Eldridge said. "Not to the big house. And you can't go to the law. So what do I do?" "You hire a professional," Eldridge said. "You?" "Me." "I thought you didn't want to get involved." "I'm already involved," Eldridge said. "I shot 2 of his men. That puts me on the payroll, one way or another." She looked at him. She measured him. "What's your price?" she asked. $500, Eldridge said. "And a new hat. I lost mine in a windstorm last week." "Done," she said. "If I get the land, I can pay you double." "500 is fine." The batwing doors swung open. Eldridge's hand dropped below the table, finding the grip of his Colt. A man stumbled in. He was skinny. He was covered in dust. He was clutching his left shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. "Lefty." He staggered into the room. He looked wild. He looked at the bar. He looked at the tables. "Help me," Lefty croaked. "I'm shot." 2 men jumped up from a card table. Bar C hands. They ran to him. "Lefty. Who shot you?" Lefty looked up. He scanned the room. His eyes locked on the corner table. He saw Ruth. He saw Eldridge. Lefty raised a shaking finger. "Him!" Lefty screamed. "The drifter. He killed Tom and Big Mike. He's got the girl." The room went silent. Every head turned. Eldridge sighed. He put his glass down. "Well," Eldridge said to Ruth, "so much for the quiet drink." He stood up. The client was hired. Chapter 4. The whiskey in the glass was amber and still, a calm center in a room that was about to explode. Eldridge Sample didn't pick it up. He watched Lefty. The wounded man was leaning on his friends, his face a mask of pain and accusation. Blood was soaking through his shirt, turning the gray fabric black. He pointed a shaking finger at Eldridge, shouting about murder and kidnapping to a room full of men who were already looking for an excuse to fight. "That's him." Lefty yelled again. "He killed Big Mike. He's got the girl." The room shifted. Chairs scraped. Men stood up, hands dropping to holsters. They were Bar C hands, or men who drank on Bar C credit. It didn't matter. In sundown, loyalty was bought by the glass. Ruth Clay sat at the table, her hands clenched around her own glass. She looked at Lefty. She looked at the crowd. She looked terrified. "Stay down," Eldridge said softly. He stood up. He didn't draw his Colt. He just let his coat fall open, revealing the handle. "He's lying," Eldridge said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the murmurs. "I didn't kidnap anyone. She's sitting right here. She's scared." Lefty screamed. "Look at her. Look at her dress." He tore it. The bartender leaned over the bar. He had a shotgun under there. Eldridge had seen him check it earlier. "You got something to say, stranger?" the bartender asked. "I'm having a drink with a lady," Eldridge said. "This man, Lefty, he tried to kill her lawyer. In a wash 5 miles back. I stopped him." "Liar." Lefty pushed away from his friends. He swayed. "He bushwhacked us. Me and Tom and Mike. We were escorting her home." "Escorting her with a quirt?" Eldridge asked. "And pinning her to the ground." The crowd muttered. They looked at Ruth. They saw the torn velvet. They saw the bruises. "Miss Clay?" a cowboy asked. He stepped forward. He was older, gray-haired. "Is this true? Is this man bothering you?" Ruth looked up. She recognized the man. A foreman from a neighboring ranch. "Mr. Tate," Ruth said. Her voice shook, then steadied. "Lefty. Lefty killed Mr. Pims. He shot him in the back." Tate frowned. He looked at Lefty. "Pims is dead?" Tate asked. "Dead in the dirt," Ruth said. "Lefty and the others, they tried to hurt me. This man, Mr. Sample, he saved me." The mood in the room wavered. The bar C hands looked at each other. Killing a lawyer was one thing. Hurting the boss's daughter was another. Even in a corrupt town, there were lines. Lefty saw he was losing the room. He was hurt, desperate, and stupid with pain. "She's crazy," Lefty yelled. The old man said she was crazy. Said she was stealing the ranch. He went for his gun. It was a clumsy draw. His left shoulder was shattered, so he tried to cross-draw with his right hand. "Don't," Eldridge said. Lefty didn't listen. He pulled the pistol. Eldridge moved. He didn't shoot Lefty. Lefty was already dying, or close enough. He shot the man standing next to him, a big man in a red shirt who was reaching for his own iron. Boom! The Colt roared in the confined space. The bullet hit Red Shirt in the chest. He went down backward, crashing into a poker table. Chips flew like confetti. Lefty fired. His shot went wild, shattering the mirror behind the bar. Eldridge fired again. Boom! This one took Lefty in the gut. It folded him. He dropped his gun and fell to his knees, then face first onto the floorboards. The third man, the one who had helped Lefty in, froze. He had his hand on his gun, but he hadn't cleared leather. He looked at Eldridge. He looked at the smoking Colt. "Your turn," Eldridge asked. The man raised his hands. "I'm out. I'm just drinking." Eldridge kept the gun leveled. He scanned the room. The other cowboys had backed away. Mr. Tate had his hands visible on the bar. "Anyone else?" Eldridge asked. Silence. The only sound was the drip of whiskey from a broken bottle and the gasping breath of Red Shirt dying on the floor. Eldridge looked at the bartender. "Put the shotgun down," Eldridge said. The bartender hesitated. Then he laid the weapon on the bar top. "We're leaving," Eldridge said. He reached down with his left hand. He grabbed Ruth's arm. "Up," he said. She stood. She was shaking again, but she moved. She didn't look at the bodies. Eldridge backed toward the door. He kept the gun on the room. "Tell the sheriff," Eldridge said to the crowd. "Tell him Lefty started it. Tell him I finished it." He pushed through the batwing doors. They hit the boardwalk. The sun was gone now. The street was blue with twilight. "My horse," Eldridge said. He untied the bay. He swung into the saddle. He reached down. Ruth took his hand. He pulled her up. "Hold on," he said. He kicked the horse. They rode down the street. People were coming out of shops, drawn by the gunfire. They stared. Eldridge didn't stop. He rode for the edge of town. "Where are we going?" Ruth asked, her voice tight against his back. "Away from the lights," Eldridge said. "The sheriff will be coming. And he won't be alone." He turned the horse down an alley, heading for the open range. He had bought her a drink. He had bought her some time. But the price was 3 more dead men and a war with the Bar C. "Expensive whiskey," Eldridge muttered. He spurred the horse into a gallop, leaving the saloon and the bodies behind, riding into the dark where the only thing that mattered was how fast you could reload. Chapter 5. The bay horse was carrying double, and didn't like it, but the animal knew the difference between a heavy load and a desperate one. It dug its hooves into the alley mud, scrambling for purchase as Eldridge Sample guided it away from the lights of the main street. "They're coming," Ruth Clay said against his back. Her voice was tight, vibrating with the rhythm of the gallop. "I can hear them." "That's just the echo," Eldridge said. "Gunshots in a wooden town sound like a drum solo. Takes a minute for people to figure out who's playing." He pulled the horse up at the mouth of the alley. They were on the edge of the commercial district, looking out at a cross street that led toward the open range to the west. He checked the street. It wasn't empty. A man was standing in the middle of the road, lit by the spill of light from the general store window. He was a big man, shaped like a beer barrel with legs, wearing a coat that strained at the buttons. He held a double-barreled shotgun broken open over his arm, dropping shells into the chambers with a casual, practiced movement. He snapped the gun shut. Clack. He looked right at the alley mouth. "That's Pogue," Ruth whispered. "The sheriff." "He knows," she said. "How does he know?" "He heard the noise," Eldridge said. "And he knows rats run for the darkest hole." Sheriff Pogue raised the shotgun. He didn't aim it. He just held it ready, comfortable with the weight. "Hold up there, Sample," Pogue called out. His voice was deep, gravelly, the voice of a man who spent a lot of time shouting orders over wind and cattle. "That horse looks overloaded." Eldridge kept his hand on the colt, but he didn't draw. At 20 yards, a shotgun was a wall. A pistol was just a suggestion. "Just passing through, Sheriff," Eldridge said. "Funny time for a ride," Pogue said. "Especially with the boss's daughter riding pillion. Miss Clay, you all right back there?" "I'm fine, Sheriff," Ruth said. She leaned around Eldridge. "This man is helping me." "Helping you do what?" "Shoot up the red steer." Pogue shook his head. "I got 3 dead men on the floor, Ruth. Bar C hands. Your daddy's payroll." "Lefty started it," Ruth said. "He killed Mr. Pims." Pogue paused. He adjusted his grip on the shotgun. The name Pims seemed to register, a complication he hadn't factored in. "Lawyer Pims?" Pogue asked. "Dead in a wash," Eldridge said. "Shot in the back. Lefty did it. Then he tried to finish the job on the lady." "That's a heavy accusation," Pogue said. "Lefty ain't here to defend himself." "Because he's dead," Eldridge said. "I settled the argument." Pogue sighed. Well, that's the problem, ain't it? You go around settling arguments with lead, you leave a mess. And I'm the janitor. He took a step forward. Get down, Pogue said. Both of you. Miss Clay, I'll take you home. Your daddy is worried sick. Sample, you're coming with me. We got a cell with a view of the brick wall. I don't think so, Eldridge said. I ain't asking, Pogue said. He lifted the muzzle of the shotgun an inch. You're sitting on a tired horse in a narrow alley. I got 2 barrels of double-aught buck. You do the math. Eldridge felt Ruth tense up. She was terrified, but she wasn't letting go. He'll take me to my father, she whispered. I know, Eldridge murmured. He looked at Pogue. The sheriff was confident. He had the weapon. He had the badge. He had the town. But he was standing in the light, and Eldridge was in the dark. You really want to do this, Pogue? Eldridge asked loud enough for the street to hear. You want to shoot a woman off the back of a horse? I ain't gonna shoot her, Pogue said. Just you. She might get splattered, but Velvet cleans up. She's the heir, Eldridge said. You scratch her, Baron Clay might decide he needs a new sheriff. Pogue hesitated. Just for a second. He was a bully, and bullies always calculated the odds of their own survival first. Get down, Pogue repeated, but the conviction had slipped a notch. Eldridge moved. He didn't go for the gun. He spurred the bay. He didn't ride at Pogue. He rode at the boardwalk. The horse leapt forward, hitting the wooden planks with a thunderous clatter. Eldridge drove it straight through the support posts of the general store awning. Hey! Pogue yelled. He swung the shotgun. Eldridge flattened himself over the horse's neck. Down, he yelled to Ruth. Pogue fired. Boom! The buckshot tore into the wooden post Eldridge had just passed. Splinters exploded outward. The awning groaned and sagged. Eldridge rode the boardwalk. He smashed through a display of brooms. He kicked a barrel of pickles over. He came off the end of the walk, hitting the street behind Pogue. Pogue spun around, trying to bring the second barrel to bear. He was heavy, slow. Eldridge reined the bay hard. The horse pivoted on its hocks. Eldridge leveled the Colt. Drop it, Eldridge roared. Pogue froze. He was facing the wrong way, off balance. He looked down the barrel of the Peacemaker. Don't be a fool, Sample, Pogue said. You can't kill a sheriff. I killed 3 men tonight, Eldridge said. I'm running out of patience before I run out of bullets. Pogue looked at the gun. He looked at Ruth's face, pale and hard in the moonlight. He lowered the shotgun. You're making a mistake, Pogue said. You can't run far enough. The Baron has a long reach. I'm not running, Eldridge said. I'm relocating. He kept the gun trained on Pogue. Turn around, Eldridge said. Start walking. Toward the jail. What? Walk. Or I put a hole in your knee and you crawl. Pogue growled, a low sound in his throat, but he turned. He started walking. Faster, Eldridge said. He herded the sheriff down the street, away from the exit. When Pogue was 20 yards away, Eldridge spun the horse. Hang on, he told Ruth. He kicked the bay into a gallop. They tore out of town, heading west. They left the lights of sundown behind, fading into the gloom. Ruth let out a breath she had been holding for 5 minutes. You didn't shoot him, she said. Killing a sheriff brings the cavalry, Eldridge said. Killing a hired gun just brings more hired guns. He will come after us. He will, Eldridge agreed. But he has to change his pants first. They rode for a mile, putting distance between themselves and the law. The terrain changed, shifting from the flat streets to the rolling, scrub-covered hills of the open range. Eldridge slowed the horse to a trot. The bay was breathing hard, foam flecking its chest. "We need a place," Eldridge said. "Somewhere Pogue won't look for a while. Not the hotel. Not a campsite." "I know a place," Ruth said. "Where?" "Webb's place," she said. "Old man Webb. He has a shack about 3 miles north, near the dry creek." "Is he a friend?" "He hates my father," Ruth said. "That makes him a friend tonight." "Why does he hate him?" "My father burned him out," Ruth said. 5 years ago. Took his water. Took his cattle. Webb and his wife, Martha, they live in a shack made of scrap wood. They have nothing. And they'll help you? The daughter of the man who ruined them. "They might shoot me," Ruth admitted. "But they won't hand me over to Pogue." Eldridge considered it. An enemy of an enemy was a classic refuge, but it was also a gamble. Desperate people sometimes sold out for a hot meal. "It's better than the open," Eldridge decided. "Which way?" "North," Ruth said. "Follow the ridge line." Eldridge turned the horse. They rode into the dark, 2 fugitives on a tired horse, heading for the home of people who had every reason to hate the name Clay. "Family business," Eldridge muttered to the night. "It's always the bloodiest." He checked the Colt. 1 round left. He needed to reload. But first, he needed to get off the road. Chapter 6. The shack looked like it had been built out of spite, and whatever lumber had fallen off a passing wagon. It sat in a hollow between 2 dry hills, leaning into the wind as if bracing for a blow that never stopped coming. Eldridge Sample pulled the bay horse up. The animal blew hard, its sides heaving against the cinch. It was carrying double weight and hadn't had a drink since the wash. "Is this it?" Eldridge asked. "This is it," Ruth Clay said. She slid off the rump, her boots hitting the dirt with a soft thud. She smoothed her torn dress, trying to pull the dignity back around her shoulders like a shawl. Eldridge looked at the house. No lights. No smoke. Just a dark shape against the darker sky. "Quiet," Eldridge said. "Maybe too quiet." "They are wary," Ruth said. "My father, his men used to ride by here at night. Just to shoot at the windows. To remind them." "Remind them of what?" "That they lost," she said. Eldridge dismounted. He tied the bay to a fence post that was really just a mesquite branch stuck in the ground. He loosened the thong on his Colt. "Stay behind me," he said. They walked toward the porch. The wood was gray, warped. A rocking chair sat empty, moving slightly in the breeze. Eldridge stepped onto the first board. "Creek." "That's far enough," a voice said from the dark. It wasn't a welcoming voice. It sounded like gravel grinding against iron. Eldridge stopped. He kept his hands away from his belt. "We aren't here to trouble you," Eldridge said. "You brought trouble with you," the voice said. "I can smell the horse sweat. And I heard the shooting in town. Sounded like the 4th of July." A match flared. It lit a lantern hanging by the door. An old man stood there. He was thin, wiry, wearing suspenders over a shirt that had been patched so many times it was more thread than fabric. He held a shotgun. It was leveled right at Eldridge's chest. "Webb," Ruth whispered. The old man moved the lantern. He looked at Eldridge. Then he looked at the woman standing behind him. His eyes narrowed. "Well," Webb said, "if it ain't the princess." "Hello, Mr. Webb," Ruth said. "Don't hello me, girl. You're trespassing. Again. Last time you were here, you were riding a thoroughbred and laughing while your daddy's men cut my fences." I I didn't laugh, Ruth stammered. You didn't stop them, Webb said. The door opened wider. A woman stepped out. She was short, round, wiping her hands on an apron. She looked at Ruth with a mixture of curiosity and distaste. Who is it, Webb? The woman asked. It's the Clay girl, Martha. And a stray dog she picked up. I'm not a dog, Eldridge said. And she needs help. She needs to get off my land, Webb said. He didn't lower the shotgun. Before I forget that I don't shoot women. My father is trying to kill me, Ruth said. Her voice broke just a little. Webb laughed. It was a dry, hacking sound. Is he now? Finally, decided you were too expensive to keep. He killed Mr. Pims, Ruth said. His men, they killed him in the wash. And they tried to. She stopped. She touched the bruise on her cheek. Martha stepped forward. She saw the torn dress. She saw the mark on Ruth's face. Put the gun down, Webb, Martha said. They're Clay's blood, Webb argued. She's hurt, Martha said. And she's standing in the dark. Webb hesitated. He looked at Eldridge. He looked at the Colt. You the one doing the shooting in town? Webb asked. I settled an argument, Eldridge said. With who? Lefty. And a few others. Webb paused. A slow smile spread across his face, revealing teeth stained with tobacco. You shot Lefty. In the gut, Eldridge said. Webb lowered the shotgun. He spat over the railing. Well, Webb said, I guess that counts for something. Lefty owed me a mule. He stepped back. Come in, Webb said. But don't expect cake. We ain't got none. They walked inside. The shack was one room, lit by a kerosene lamp on a table made of crate wood. The floor was dirt, swept hard. It smelled of beans, wood smoke, and poverty. Martha pulled a chair out. Sit, child. Ruth sat. She looked around. She looked at the walls, covered in newspaper to keep the wind out. She looked at the stove, which was cold. It's cozy, Ruth lied. It's a shack, Webb said, closing the door and barring it with a heavy piece of timber. It's what you get when a rich man steals your water and burns your barn. He walked to the table. He picked up a bottle of clear liquid. Corn, Webb said. Homemade. It'll strip paint, but it kills the pain. He poured 2 tin cups. He handed one to Eldridge. Eldridge took it. He tipped it back. It burned all the way down, hot and raw. Thanks, Eldridge said. Webb sat on a stool. He looked at Ruth. So, Webb said. The Baron turned on his own. Why? He wants the deed, Ruth said. My mother's land. The Double Creek section. The water, Webb said. He nodded. Figures. He drank the rest of the valley dry. Now he needs the reserve. I wouldn't sign, Ruth said. So he sent Pims. Then he sent Lefty. And now he sent the sheriff, Eldridge added. Pogue tried to stop us in the street. I had to convince him to take a walk. You brace Pogue. Webb looked impressed. You got a death wish, mister? I got a sense of timing, Eldridge said. But we can't stay in town. And we can't ride the open range. Pogue will have a posse out by midnight. So you came here, Webb said. To the people your daddy ruined. I didn't know where else to go, Ruth said softly. Webb looked at her. He looked at the expensive riding habit, ruined by the dust and the tearing. He looked at her soft hands. You're just like him, Webb said. You think you can just walk in and take what you need. You think because you're in trouble, the world owes you a bed. I can pay, Ruth said. She reached for a pocket that wasn't there. She realized she had no money. Her purse was in the buggy wreck. I can pay, Eldridge said. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out the last of his gold. 2 eagles. $20. He put them on the table. Webb looked at the coins. He didn't touch them. That won't buy your life, Webb said. If Clay finds you here, he'll burn this place too. And he'll kill us for harboring. He won't find us tonight, Eldridge said. He thinks we're running for the county line. He thinks we're scared. Ain't you? I'm careful, Eldridge said. There's a difference. Martha came over with a basin of water and a rag. She started cleaning the cut on Ruth's cheek. Leave her be, Webb, Martha said. She's just a girl. She's the enemy, Webb said. But he picked up the gold coins. He rubbed them together. $20. That buys a lot of flour. He looked at Eldridge. You can stay, Webb said. Tonight. But you sleep in the barn. Or what's left of it. I don't want you in the house with that iron. Fair enough, Eldridge said. And tomorrow? Webb asked. What's the plan? You gonna fight the whole bar, see? Tomorrow, Eldridge said, we figure out how to get to the county seat without getting shot. Good luck, Webb said. Pogue will have the roads blocked. And Clay? Clay has men in every telegraph office from here to Austin. We have the deed, Ruth said. She touched her bodice. Paper, Webb scoffed. Paper burns, girl. Clay knows that better than anyone. He stood up. He walked to the window and peered out through a crack in the shutter. It's quiet, Webb said. For now. He turned back to Eldridge. You really shot Lefty? I really did. Did he squeal? He didn't have time, Eldridge said. Webb grinned. It was a fierce, vindictive look. Good, Webb said. Maybe the world ain't entirely broken. He blew out the lamp. Get to the barn, Webb said. And keep your eyes open. If I hear a horse, I'm shooting first and asking questions later. Eldridge nodded. He motioned for Ruth. Stay here, Eldridge said to her. With Martha. In the dark? Ruth asked. She looked around the dirt floor. It's safer than the light, Eldridge said. He walked out. He went to the bay horse. He led it to the shed that Webb called a barn. It was 3 walls and a roof that leaked starlight. He settled in the straw. He listened to the wind. He thought about Webb. The old man was bitter, hard, and mean. But he was solid. He hated Clay enough to risk his life for $20 and a chance to spit in the Baron's eye. An ally, Eldridge whispered. Reluctant, but armed. He checked the Colt. He reloaded the empty chambers. The family squabble had just become a range war, and Eldridge was sitting on the front line with a borrowed horse and a client who didn't know the difference between a checkbook and a loaded gun. Chapter 7. Baron Clay didn't shout. He didn't pace. He sat in the barber's chair in the front window of the Emporium, a hot towel wrapped around his face, while the town of Sundown held its breath outside the glass. Sheriff Pogue stood by the door. He was turning his hat in his hands, running the brim through his fingers like a rosary. He looked like a man who had bet his saddle on a pair of deuces and was waiting for the dealer to turn the river card. Tell me again, Clay said from under the towel. His voice was muffled, but it had the weight of a stone dropped down a well. Like I said, Baron, Pogue stammered. He was fast. Faster than he looked. He had the drop on me before I could clear the scattergun. You had a shotgun, Clay said. He had a pistol. And a woman on the back of a horse. He was crazy, Pogue said. He rode right through the boardwalk. Smashed the posts. I didn't want to hit Miss Ruth. Clay reached up He peeled the towel off his face. He was a handsome man, in the way a mountain lion is handsome. Silver hair swept back. A face that was tan and lined, but not from work, from watching other people work in the sun. His eyes were the color of slate. He handed the towel to the barber, who took it with trembling fingers. "You didn't want to hit Ruth," Clay repeated. "No, sir. She's your blood." "She's a thief," Clay said. "She stole my property. The deed. And now she's run off with a drifter who killed 3 of my best hands." Clay sat up. The barber lathered his chin. "Lefty is dead," Clay said. "Big Mike is dead. Tom is dead. That's a lot of training gone to waste, Sheriff. Expensive training." "I know, Baron. I'll get him. I got deputies riding the South Road right now." "He didn't go south," Clay said. "South is open country. A man on a tired horse with a woman doesn't ride into the open. He goes to ground." The barber stropped his razor. "Shish. Where?" Pogue asked. "Somewhere close," Clay said. "Somewhere he thinks I won't look. Or somewhere he thinks I can't touch." Clay looked out the window. He watched the street. It was quiet. Too quiet. The shopkeepers were sweeping, but they were looking at the emporium. They knew the Baron was in town. They knew the bill was coming due. "Close the town," Clay said. Pogue blinked. "Close it." "Lock it down," Clay said. "Nobody leaves. Nobody enters. Put men on the bridge. Put men on the ridge road. Check every wagon. Check every saddlebag. That's going to upset the merchants, Baron. The supply wagons." "I own the merchants," Clay said. "And I own the wagons. Do it." The barber leaned in with the razor. He scraped Clay's jaw. Clay didn't flinch. "And the drifter," Clay said. "What's his name?" "Sample," Pogue said. "Eldridge Sample." "Put a price on him." "There's already a warrant," Pogue said. "For the shooting at the saloon." "Warrants are paper," Clay said. "Paper doesn't make men ride at night. Gold does." Clay held up a hand. The barber stopped. $1,000, Clay said. Pogue's eyes widened. 1,000? For one man? "Dead," Clay said. "I don't want a trial. I don't want a speech. I want him dead in the street. As an example." "And the girl?" Pogue asked. "Miss Ruth." Clay looked at his reflection in the mirror. He looked at the gray in his beard. He thought about the deed in her boot. The deed that gave her the water. The deed that could turn his empire into a dry patch of dust. "Bring her home," Clay said. "Unharmed. If she has a scratch on her, Pogue, if she has a bruise, I will take it out of your hide." "Understood." "She's confused," Clay said smoothly. "Grief. Losing her mother, it unhinged her. She needs care. She needs her father." "Of course," Pogue said. He knew it was a lie. Everyone knew Ruth hated the old man. But truth in Sundown was whatever Baron Clay said it was. "Go," Clay said. "Start the search. Burn every bush if you have to. But find them." Pogue put his hat on. He walked out. Clay settled back in the chair. He tilted his chin up. "Close shave, Mr. Black," Clay said to the barber. "Right to the skin." The barber nodded, sweating. He scraped the steel across the Baron's throat. Outside, the town began to tighten. Pogue walked down the boardwalk. He grabbed the first deputy he saw, a kid named Billy who wore his gun too low. "Round up the boys," Pogue ordered. "We got work." "We riding?" Billy asked. "We're sealing the jar," Pogue said. "Baron's orders." No one in or out. And post a notice. $1,000 for the drifter. 1,000? Billy whistled. I'll go get my rifle. You get your friends, Pogue said. We're going to turn this town upside down. Across the street, in the alley behind the livery, a man was watching. He wasn't a deputy. He wasn't a ranch hand. He was a swamper from the saloon, a man who swept floors and emptied spittoons. He had a broom in his hand, but his eyes were sharp. He watched Pogue shouting orders. He watched the riders mounting up in front of the jail. He leaned his broom against the wall. He slipped into the shadows. He moved through the back lots, stepping over trash, avoiding the light. He wasn't going to the sheriff. He was going north, toward the hills. He walked for an hour, keeping to the dry washes. He reached the edge of the Bar C range. He climbed a ridge. He looked down into the hollow where Webb's shack stood. He didn't go down. He picked up a rock. He threw it against a larger stone. Clack. He waited. A shadow detached itself from the barn. Eldridge Sample. He had the Colt in his hand. Who's there? Eldridge called softly. Friend, the swamper whispered. From town. Eldridge walked up the slope. He didn't holster the gun. I know you, Eldridge said. You work at the Red Steer. I sweep the glass, the man said. Name's Henry. You walk a long way to sweep rocks, Henry. I walked a long way to tell you the price of your head, Henry said. How much? $1,000, Henry said. Dead. Eldridge whistled low. The Baron is generous. He's scared, Henry said. He locked the town down. Blocked the roads. He's got men checking every wagon. He says you kidnapped the girl. I figured he'd say that. He says she's sick, Henry said. Says she needs to come home for her health. She's healthier here than she would be there. Eldridge looked at the man. Why tell me? $1,000 is a lot of money for a swamper. Henry spat. Baron Clay kicked my daddy off his land 10 years ago. Starved us out. My daddy died in a poorhouse in Austin. I sweep floors because of that man. So you want him hurt? I want him stopped, Henry said. And I figure you're the only one dumb enough to try. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out a pouch of tobacco. Here, Henry said. Figure you might be low. Eldridge took it. Thanks. Watch the ridge, Henry said. Pogue is sending patrols. They're gonna start checking the outliers. Webb's place is on the list. We'll be ready. Don't stay too long, Henry warned. $1,000 makes friends into enemies real quick. Henry turned and slid back down the slope, disappearing into the brush. Eldridge stood there. He held the tobacco. $1,000. That changed the math. That meant every saddle tramp, every unemployed cowboy, every man with a debt in the county was going to be looking for a man on a bay horse. He walked back down to the shack. Webb was sitting on the porch, shotgun across his knees. Company? Webb asked. Messenger, Eldridge said. From town. Bad news? Expensive news, Eldridge said. Clay put 1,000 on my head. Webb raised an eyebrow. 1,000? Hell, son. I might shoot you myself. You could try, Eldridge said. I might miss, Webb grinned. Eyes ain't what they used to be. He closed the town, Eldridge said. Roadblocks. Patrols. He's squeezing. He knows you're close, Webb said. He can smell it. Ruth came out of the shack. She had washed her face, but the bruise was dark purple against her skin. She looked at Eldridge. What is happening? She asked. Your father is calling in the reserves, Eldridge said. He's turning Sundown into a fortress. He wants the deed. He wants you, Eldridge said. And he wants me dead. He looked at the barn, where his horse was eating the last of Webb's hay. We can't leave, Eldridge said. Not yet. If we hit the road now, we run right into a patrol. So we stay? Ruth asked. In this box? We stay, Eldridge said. We let them run around. We let them get tired. We let them think we slipped the net. And then we go to the county seat, Eldridge said. But not on the road. We go cross-country. Through the Badlands. That's rough country, Webb said. No water. Just rock and rattlesnakes. Better than a roadblock, Eldridge said. He looked at the sky. The stars were bright, cold. Get some sleep, Eldridge told Ruth. Tomorrow, we start digging in. If Poe comes here, we need to be invisible. Invisible, Ruth repeated. She looked at her torn velvet dress. I was never invisible. My father made sure of that. Well, Eldridge said, it's a new skill. You better learn it fast. He walked back to the barn. He sat in the straw. He rolled a cigarette with the new tobacco. $1,000. He lit the match. The flame illuminated the grim set of his jaw. Baron Clay had turned the heat up. He wanted a war. Eldridge blew smoke into the dark. All right, Baron, he whispered. You bought the ticket. Now you get to take the ride. Chapter 8. The barn was a sieve made of gray wood, letting the starlight filter through the cracks to stripe the straw on the floor. It smelled of old hay, dry manure, and the gun oil Eldridge Sample was rubbing into the action of his Colt. He won't stop, a voice said from the shadows. Eldridge didn't look up. He slid the cylinder back into the frame. Click. Ruth Clay stepped into the light. She had changed. Martha must have given her some clothes, a rough cotton shirt and a pair of men's trousers that were rolled up at the cuffs. She looked smaller without the velvet riding habit, but harder. I know he won't stop, Eldridge said. He put $1,000 on the table. That's not stopping money. That's finishing money. He doesn't care about the money, Ruth said. She sat on a bale of hay, pulling her knees up. He cares about the signature. The deed. The deed, she confirmed. She reached into her shirt. No, she reached down to her boot. She had moved it. She pulled out a folded document, wrapped in oilcloth to keep the sweat off. This is it, she said. Eldridge holstered the Colt. He held out his hand. She hesitated, then handed it to him. He unfolded it. The paper was heavy bond, the ink faded but legible. It was a land grant transfer, dated 20 years ago. Maria Elena Montoya, to Ruth Clay, upon the event of my death. Your mother, Eldridge said. She was Mexican aristocracy, Ruth said. Before the war. Before my father came and civilized the valley. She owned the water rights to the Double Creek. He married her to get the land. And when she died, it didn't go to him, Ruth said. Her eyes were dark in the gloom. That was the clause. She knew him. She knew what he was. She entailed the property to me. If I die without an heir, it reverts to the husband. Eldridge folded the paper. He handed it back. So you're worth more dead than alive, Eldridge said. To him. If he kills me, Ruth said, he owns the water. If I get to the county seat and file this, I own the water. And without the water, the Bar C is just dust. That's a hell of a family dinner, Eldridge said. It is a war, she said. It has always been a war. He just didn't start shooting until today. She tucked the paper back into her boot. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You aren't a lawyer. You aren't family." "I'm the guy who found you in the ditch," Eldridge said. "Once you pick up a rock, you have to decide where to throw it." He stood up. He moved to the gap in the barn wall that served as a window. He looked out at the dark hills. "Quiet," Eldridge whispered. "Too quiet." "Just quiet enough for trouble." The wind shifted. It brought the scent of sage, cooling earth, and something else. Tobacco smoke. Not the cheap stuff Henry the Swamper smoked. This was cigarette smoke, but it was close. Too close for the ridge line. Eldridge signaled with his hand. "Down." Ruth slid off the bale. She crouched in the straw. Eldridge moved to the door. He didn't open it. He looked through a knothole. Two shadows were moving toward the house. They were on foot, leading their horses to keep the noise down. They weren't using the path. They were coming through the brush. Deputies. Or hired guns, looking for that $1,000. "They're probing," Eldridge whispered. "Checking the holes." "Webb?" Ruth asked. "Webb is asleep. Or he's waiting. If he shoots, they'll burn the shack." Eldridge drew his knife. The cook's knife was gone, lost in a previous life, but he had the bowie he kept in his boot. "Stay here," Eldridge said. "If anyone comes through that door who isn't me, shoot them." He handed her the Springfield rifle he had left leaning against the wall. "It's heavy," he said. "Rest it on the bale." She took it. She looked terrified, but she racked the lever. Eldridge slipped out the back of the barn. He moved low, belly to the ground, using the weeds for cover. He circled the corral. The two men were close to the porch now. One was tall, wearing a duster. The other was shorter, holding a lantern that wasn't lit. "I hear snoring," the tall one whispered. "Old man," the short one said. "Let's wake him up." "Quiet." Pogue said, "Check the barn first. If the horse is there, the drifter is there." They turned toward the barn. Eldridge was behind the water trough. He was 10 feet away. He picked up a stone. He tossed it. It hit the side of the house. Thump. The two men spun around, guns coming up. "What was that?" the short one hissed. "Around the side," the tall one said. "Go look." The short one moved toward the house. The tall one stayed back, watching the yard. Separated. Eldridge moved. He came up behind the tall man. He didn't use the knife blade. He used the heavy brass pommel. He struck the man at the base of the skull. It wasn't a killing blow, but it was lights out. The man folded without a sound, his knees giving way like wet cardboard. Eldridge caught him before he hit the dirt, lowering him gently. One down. He looked at the house. The short man was peering around the corner of the porch. He held his pistol up by his ear. Eldridge stepped over the unconscious man. He walked across the open yard. He didn't run. Running made noise. He walked with a predator's silence. The short man turned back. He saw a shape in the dark. "Jake," the man whispered. "You get him?" "I got him," Eldridge said. He stepped into the man's reach. The deputy realized too late that the voice was wrong. He tried to bring the gun down. Eldridge grabbed the gun barrel with his left hand, forcing it away. With his right, he drove a fist into the man's solar plexus. The deputy doubled over, gasping, the air driven out of him. Eldridge brought his knee up. It connected with the man's chin. Crack. The deputy went backward, landing in the dust. He twitched and went still. Eldridge stood over him. He picked up the fallen gun. He threw it into the horse trough. The door to the shack opened. Webb stood there in his long johns, the shotgun leveled. "Who's there?" Webb barked. "Garbage men," Eldridge said. "Picking up the trash." Webb lowered the gun. He looked at the two bodies in his yard. "Dead?" "Sleeping," Eldridge said. "They'll have headaches in the morning." Ruth came running from the barn, dragging the heavy rifle. She saw Eldridge standing. She saw the men on the ground. "You got them," she said. "Scouts," Eldridge said. "Pogue is testing the perimeter. He wanted to see if we'd shoot." "We didn't shoot," Webb said. "You knocked him cold." "That buys us time," Eldridge said. "If we had fired, Pogue would have heard it. Now he just thinks his men got lost. Or lazy." He grabbed the tall man's boots. "Help me drag them," Eldridge said. "Away from the house. Leave them by the road. Let them wake up and walk home." "Why not kill them?" Webb asked. "They came to kill us." "Because dead deputies bring the state police," Eldridge said. "Live ones just bring embarrassment. And Pogue hates embarrassment." They dragged the men to the edge of the property line. Eldridge took their guns and their horses. He slapped the horses on the rump, sending them running south. "They walk back," Eldridge said. He walked back to the shack. "Get your things," Eldridge told Ruth. "We're leaving." "We're burnt," Eldridge said. "They know we're here. Maybe not for sure, but they suspect. Those two will wake up in an hour and tell Pogue." "Where do we go?" "The Badlands," Eldridge said. "The lava fields to the north. Horses hate it. Men hate it. It's the only place Pogue won't send a patrol at night." Webb spat. "That's rough country, son. No water." "We have canteens," Eldridge said. "And we have a map that says this girl owns the water. We just have to live long enough to file it." He looked at Ruth. "Can you ride double again?" "I can ride," she said. "Good. Because the easy part is over." They saddled the bay. They said goodbye to Webb and Martha, leaving them with the shotgun and a promise to come back when the deed was done. Eldridge mounted up. Ruth swung up behind him. They rode north, away from the town, away from the road, heading into the broken rock where the only thing that grew was thorns and trouble. Chapter 9. The lava field wasn't just rough country. It was the Earth's way of saying it didn't want company. The ground was a jagged carpet of black basalt, sharp as broken bottle glass and treacherous as a frozen river. It sucked the moonlight out of the sky and held it in deep shadowy fissures that could break a horse's leg without trying. Eldridge Sample walked the bay horse. He didn't dare ride. The iron shoes clinked and scraped against the stone, a sound that carried for miles in the dead silence of the high desert. Ruth Clay walked behind him. She was stumbling. Her boots, fine leather made for stirrups and parlor floors, were being chewed to pieces by the rock. "How far?" she asked. It wasn't a question, it was a complaint. "Far enough to be alone," Eldridge said. He found a depression in the lava flow, a sinkhole where the roof of a tube had collapsed centuries ago. It was sheltered from the wind, and more importantly, from the sight lines of the valley floor. "Here," Eldridge said. He led the horse down. The animal blew out a breath, nervous about the footing, but it trusted the hand on the bridle. Ruth slid down the slope. She sat on a slab of black rock, pulling her knees to her chest. She looked at her boots. She looked at the desolate, alien landscape. "It's ugly," she said. "It's defensive," Eldridge said. "Pogue won't bring horses in here at night. He likes his mounts too much." Eldridge loosened the cinch on the bay. He poured a little water from his canteen into his hat and let the horse drink. The water was precious, but the horse was the engine. He sat down opposite Ruth. He rolled a cigarette, but he didn't light it. The flare of a match could be seen for 10 miles in this darkness. "We wait for the sun," Eldridge said. "Then we move west. Cross the ridge." "To the county seat," Ruth said. "To the judge." She touched her bodice, checking the paper. The deed. The piece of parchment that was worth more than the blood already spilled for it. "When I file it," Ruth said, her voice changing, becoming harder, "I'll evict him." "Your father?" "Baron Clay," she said. She didn't use the familial term. "I'll have the sheriff, the real sheriff from the county seat, serve the papers. I'll give him 24 hours to vacate the big house." "He built the house," Eldridge said. "On my mother's land. With money he made from her water." She stared at the black rock. "I'll take the house. I'll take the herd. I'll take the town." Eldridge looked at her. In the starlight, her face was pale, the bruise on her cheek a dark smudge. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked like someone planning a coronation. "And then what?" Eldridge asked. "Then I run it," she said. "I run it better." "Better for who?" "For me," she said. "For the name. You going to let Webb and Martha back on their land?" Ruth paused. She frowned, as if the thought hadn't occurred to her. "Webb is difficult," she said. "He's squatting on prime grazing land. If I let him stay, others will want to stay. It sets a precedent." "He was there first," Eldridge said. "Before your father burned him out." "My father was ruthless," she said. "But he was effective. You have to be effective to hold a valley like this." Eldridge chewed on the unlit cigarette. He tasted the tobacco and the dust. "You sound like him," Eldridge said. She bristled. "I am nothing like him. He is a murderer. He killed Mr. Pims." "He killed Pims to keep what he thought was his," Eldridge said. "You want to evict Webb to keep what you think is yours. The only difference is Pims is dead and Webb is just broke. I am taking back what was stolen." "You're taking power," Eldridge said. "And power has a way of turning people into the thing they hate." He leaned forward. "I saw you in the shack," Eldridge said. "When we paid Webb. You didn't say thank you. You looked at the dirt floor and turned your nose up. You looked at them like they were livestock." "They were rude," she snapped. "The old man pointed a gun at me." "He pointed a gun at a Clay," Eldridge said. "And tonight, listening to you. I think his aim was right." Ruth stood up. She paced the small circle of the sinkhole. Her boots crunched on the volcanic glass. "You are a hired gun, Mr. Sample. You are paid to shoot, not to lecture." "I haven't been paid yet," Eldridge reminded her. "I'm working on a promise. And right now, I'm wondering if that promise is worth the price." "You want more money? Is that it? When I get the ranch, I'll pay you double, triple." "It's not about the money." "It is always about the money," she said. She sounded exactly like Baron Clay in that moment. Arrogant. Certain. "Everyone has a price. My father taught me that." "He taught you well," Eldridge said. "Maybe too well." He stood up. He checked the bay. "You aren't doing this for justice, Ruth. You aren't doing it for your mother. You're doing it because you want to be the one holding the whip." "Someone has to hold it," she said. "Better me than him." Eldridge looked at her. He saw the steel in her spine. She wasn't a damsel in distress. She was a tycoon in training. He wasn't saving a girl. He was arming a new warlord. "Just remember," Eldridge said, "when you hold the whip, you have to watch your back. Because there's always someone coming up behind you with a knife. Or a deed." She didn't answer. She sat back down on the rock, her chin high, staring into the dark. Eldridge walked to the rim of the sinkhole. He looked south, back toward the valley. Back toward Webb's shack. He saw a glow. It was faint at first, a smudge of orange against the black horizon. Then it grew. It pulsed. "Fire," Eldridge said. Ruth scrambled up the bank. She stood beside him. "Where?" "South," Eldridge said. 3 miles. "Webb's place," she whispered. The glow brightened. Flames were licking up into the sky, visible even at this distance. It wasn't a campfire. It was a structure burning. "He found them," Ruth said. "My father found them." "He didn't find us," Eldridge said. "So he's punishing the people who helped us." "They'll kill them," Ruth said. Her voice lost its edge. The arrogance cracked, replaced by sudden fear. "Webb. Martha. They're sending a message," Eldridge said. "They're smoking us out. They know we'll see it. We have to go back. If we go back, we walk into a trap. We can't just let them burn." "You wanted to evict them anyway," Eldridge said coldly. "Remember? Prime grazing land." She looked at him. She looked stricken. The reality of her words slammed into the reality of the fire. "I didn't mean, not like this. This is what effective looks like, Ruth. This is the price of holding the valley." She grabbed his arm. "We have to stop it," she said. "Please." Eldridge looked at the fire. He looked at the woman. The tycoon was gone. The scared girl was back. Or maybe she was just realizing that being a monster wasn't as fun as it sounded. "Get on the horse," Eldridge said. "We're going back?" "We're going to the fire," Eldridge said. "But we aren't going to save the barn. That's already gone." "Then why?" "To see if there's anyone left to save," Eldridge said. He swung into the saddle. He pulled her up behind him. The bay horse grunted, taking the weight. Eldridge turned the animal back toward the south, back toward the flames. He wasn't doing it for Ruth. He wasn't doing it for the money. He was doing it because Webb had given him a drink of corn whiskey and a place to sleep. And in Eldridge Sample's book, that was a debt that had to be paid. "Hold on," he said. He guided the horse out of the lava field, descending from the hard rock into the soft, dangerous ground of the valley floor. Chapter 10. The barn wasn't a building anymore. It was a skeleton made of orange light and collapsing timber. The heat rolled across the yard in waves, drying the sweat on Eldridge Sample's face before it could drip. He pulled the bay horse up near the water trough. The animal danced, rolling its eyes at the sparks drifting like fireflies on the wind. "Stay here," Eldridge told Ruth. He slid from the saddle. He drew the Colt, scanning the darkness beyond the ring of firelight. The arsonists were gone. They hadn't stayed to watch the show. They had lit the match and ridden out, leaving the message to deliver itself. Webb was standing on the porch of the shack. He had his shotgun cradled in one arm. He wasn't looking at the fire. He was looking at Eldridge. Martha stood behind him, holding a bucket of water she hadn't thrown. It was useless against a fire that big, and she knew it. She looked small, gray, and tired. Eldridge walked up to the porch. The heat pressed against his back. "They didn't touch the house," Eldridge said. "They wanted us to see it," Webb said. His voice was flat, brittle as dry grass. "They wanted us to wake up and smell the ash. A warning." "They were looking for us," Eldridge said. "They thought we were sleeping in the straw." "I told them you were gone," Webb said. "They burned it anyway. Said it was for harboring fugitives. Said it was a down payment on the eviction." Ruth climbed down from the horse. She walked into the yard. The firelight played across her face, illuminating the bruise on her cheek and the dirt on her borrowed shirt. She looked at the burning barn. She looked at Webb. "My father will pay for this," Ruth said. Webb spat over the railing. The tobacco juice hissed when it hit the dry ground. "Your father did this, girl," Webb said. "He will pay damages," Ruth insisted. She walked closer, her chin high. The fear was gone, replaced by the imperious tone of a woman who was used to signing checks. "I will make him pay. When I get the ranch, I will build you a new barn. A better one. With painted siding." Webb stepped off the porch. He walked up to her. He was a head shorter than she was, but he looked bigger. He smelled of smoke and old anger. "You think wood fixes this?" Webb asked. "Money fixes everything," Ruth said. "That is how the world works." "Not my world," Webb said. "In my world, you don't burn a man's livelihood and then offer him lumber. You get off his land." "I am trying to help you." "You're trying to buy your conscience," Webb snapped. "You're just like him. You think because you have the deed in your boot, you own the people standing on the dirt. You don't own me. And you don't own the fire." Ruth recoiled. She looked at Eldridge, expecting him to defend her. Eldridge didn't move. He leaned against the hitching post, watching the flames eat the last of the roof beam. "He's right," Eldridge said. "You work for me," Ruth said. "I work for the $50 you haven't paid me yet," Eldridge said. "And right now, you're making it hard to earn." He looked at Webb. "We need a place, Webb. Just until the sun comes up. Then we're gone." "Get out," Webb said. "Go sleep in the lava field. I'm done with you." "They'll be watching the roads," Eldridge said. "If we ride out now, they cut us down. And if they catch her, your barn burning was just the start. Clay will finish the job on you just for spite." Webb griped the shotgun. He looked at the fire. He looked at Martha, who was still holding the useless bucket. "He's going to kill us anyway," Webb said. "Ain't he?" "If he wins," Eldridge said. "Yeah. He leaves no witnesses. That's his style." "So we have to win," Eldridge continued. "We have to get her to the judge. To do that, we need to disappear for 6 hours." Webb looked at Ruth. He looked at her soft hands, her defiant stance. He hated her. He hated her blood. "The root cellar," Webb said. "No," Ruth said. "I am not sleeping in a hole. It smells of rot." Webb laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "It smells of turnips and dirt, princess. It smells like survival. You're too good for it." "Fine. Stand in the yard. Makes a better target." Ruth glared at him. "I will remember this insolence." "You remember it," Webb said. "Put it in your diary. The day the peasant didn't bow." He turned to Eldridge. "The cellar door is round back. It's hidden by the woodpile. Pogue's men didn't find it last time." "We'll take it," Eldridge said. "It'll cost you," Webb said. "I gave you $20. "That was for the barn," Webb said. "The cellar costs more." "I'm out of gold." "Not money," Webb said. He looked at the Colt on Eldridge's hip. "Ammo. I'm low on double-aught. And I got a feeling I'm gonna need it." Eldridge reached into his saddlebag. He pulled out a box of shotgun shells he had bought. No, he didn't buy shells. He had rifle rounds. "I have .44 to 40, Eldridge said. "For the rifle." "I got a Winchester under the bed," Webb said. "That'll do." Eldridge handed him the box. A full box. 50 rounds. Webb took it. He weighed it in his hand. "Deal?" Webb said. He walked back to the porch and sat down in the rocker. He laid the shotgun across his knees. He started loading the Winchester with the fresh brass. "Go to ground," Webb said. "I'll take the watch." Eldridge grabbed Ruth's arm. She pulled away. "Don't handle me," she said. "Then move," Eldridge said, "before the light changes." They walked around the back of the shack. Eldridge moved a stack of firewood. Behind it was a slanted door set into the earth. He pulled it open. The smell of damp earth and decaying vegetables drifted up. "After you," Eldridge said. Ruth looked into the black hole. She pulled her shirt tight around her neck. "This is dignified," she muttered. "Dignity is for people who aren't being hunted," Eldridge said. She climbed down the ladder. Eldridge followed, pulling the door shut above them. He shoved a piece of wood through the latch from the inside. It was pitch black. The air was cool, heavy. "Sit," Eldridge said. He heard her rustle in the dark. She sat on a sack of potatoes. "He hates me," Ruth whispered. "He hates what you represent," Eldridge said. "You represent the fire. I am going to fix it. I am going to make it right." "You keep saying that," Eldridge said. He sat on the dirt floor, his back against the wall. "But you keep sounding like you're just planning to buy new furniture for a house you burned down. You don't understand." "I understand that Webb just sold his safety for a box of bullets because he knows war is coming," Eldridge said. "And you're worried about the smell." He closed his eyes. He listened to the muffled roar of the barn fire outside. "Sleep," Eldridge said. "Tomorrow we ride for the county seat. And we find out if the law is worth the paper it's written on." Ruth didn't answer. She sat in the dark, clutching the deed to her chest, surrounded by the smell of roots and the silent judgment of the earth. Chapter 11. The sun came up over the town of sundown like a bailiff arriving to collect a debt, stripping away the cool shadows of the night and leaving nothing but the hard, exposing glare of the morning. Baron Clay sat at the best table in the dining room of the Empire Hotel. He was eating steak and eggs, cutting the meat with surgical precision. He wore a fresh linen suit, the color of heavy cream, and a black string tie. He looked like a man who owned the sunlight hitting the tablecloth. Sheriff Pogue stood by the window, nervously rolling the brim of his hat. He looked like a man who had bet his horse on a pair of threes and knew the dealer was holding an ace. "They weren't in the barn," Pogue said. Clay chewed. He swallowed. He took a sip of coffee from a china cup. "My men burned a building down," Clay said. His voice was calm, conversational. "A good structure. Seasoned timber. And you're telling me it was empty?" "The fire boys, they said nobody ran out," Pogue said. "They watched it burned to the foundation. If the drifter and Miss Ruth were in there, they're ash now." "They aren't ash," Clay said. "Sample isn't the kind of man who dies quietly in a fire. He's a rat. Rats have holes." Clay put his fork down. He dabbed his mouth with a napkin. "Webb is hiding them," Clay said. "Or he knows where they went." "Webb stood on his porch with a shotgun," Pogue said. "He watched it burn. He didn't blink. He swears they left hours before." "Webb is a liar," Clay said. "But he's a stubborn liar. Pressing him won't work. We need to press the ground." Clay stood up. He walked to the window. He looked out at the main street of his town. The shopkeepers were opening up. A wagon loaded with barbed wire was rolling past. It looked peaceful. It looked profitable. Clay hated it. He hated the calm because he knew what was swimming underneath it. A deed. A piece of paper that could turn his empire into a parking lot. Close it, Clay said. Pogue frowned. Close what? The town, Clay said. Sundown. Lock it up. Baron, we got supply wagons coming in. We got the silver shipment going out on the noon stage. If I close the road. I don't care about the silver, Clay said. He turned on Pogue. His eyes were slate gray, hard as the rock in the mine. I care about my daughter. And I care about the man who stole her. He walked to the table and picked up a piece of paper. He uncapped a fountain pen. This isn't a manhunt anymore, Sheriff. It's a siege. I want checkpoints at the North Bridge and the South Pass. I want every wagon searched. I want every saddlebag opened. People ain't gonna like that. People live here because I let them, Clay said. They'll like what I tell them to like. He wrote a number on the paper. A 1 followed by 3 zeros. $1,000. He turned the paper around and slid it toward Pogue. Post this, Clay said. Pogue looked at the number. He whistled low through his teeth. $1,000? Pogue asked. For a drifter? Dead, Clay said. I don't want him arrested. I don't want him talking to a judge. I want him carried in on a door. And Miss Ruth? Alive, Clay said. The word came out sharp. Unharmed. She's confused. She's been misled by a criminal. She needs to be returned to the safety of her family. She was aiming a rifle at my deputies yesterday, Pogue muttered. She was under duress, Clay said smoothly. Sample forced her. That's the story, Sheriff. Stick to it. Clay walked to the sideboard and poured a glass of water. Get the printer, Clay ordered. I want posters on every wall, every post, and every tree within 10 miles. Wanted for kidnapping and murder. Make Sample look like the devil himself. He killed 3 of your hands, Pogue said. He fits the description. Good. Now go. And Pogue. The sheriff stopped at the door. Don't come back and tell me about empty barns again, Clay said. Next time, I want to hear about a full coffin. Pogue put his hat on. He walked out. Clay watched him go. He watched the sheriff cross the street to the jailhouse. He saw Pogue grab a deputy and start pointing at the roads. The town was waking up, but it was about to go back to sleep. A long, suffocating sleep. Clay checked his pocket watch. Gold. Heavy. Where are you, Ruth? He whispered. He knew she was close. She didn't have the stamina to run across the Badlands. She was holed up. Waiting. Waiting for the circuit judge, who was due in 3 days. She thinks the law will save her, Clay said to the empty room. He laughed softly. It wasn't a happy sound. He walked out of the hotel. He stepped onto the boardwalk. The air was already hot. He walked to the bank, his bank. He went inside. The teller, a young man with sleeve garters, jumped to attention. Mr. Clay. Good morning. Open the vault, Clay said. Sir. I need cash, Clay said. Small bills. Silver. Gold. Bring it to the sheriff's office. How much? Enough to buy every pair of eyes in this county, Clay said. He walked out. He stood in the center of the street. He looked north toward the hills where Webb's shack smoldered. He raised his voice. He didn't shout, but he projected. He had the voice of a man used to addressing cattle drives and shareholders. Listen to me, Clay said. The street stopped. Men paused in their work. A wagon driver hauled back on his reins. There's a man in these hills, Clay announced. A killer. He has taken my daughter. A murmur went through the crowd. He is armed. He is dangerous. And he is hiding. Clay reached into his pocket. He pulled out a gold eagle. He flipped it in the air. It flashed in the sun. $1,000, Clay said. To the man who stops him. He caught the coin. And 500 to anyone who tells me where he is. The mood in the street shifted. It changed from curiosity to hunger. Men looked at each other. They looked at their guns. $1,000 was 2 years' wages for a mucker. It was a ranch. It was a new life. Find him, Clay said. He turned and walked toward his office. Behind him, the town of Sundown began to change. It wasn't a community anymore. It was a hunting pack. Shopkeepers closed their doors. Miners dropped their picks and picked up shotguns. The siege had begun. Clay sat at his desk in the land office. He looked at the map on the wall. The Bar Sea stretched from the river to the mountains. It was his. All of it. Except for the Double Creek section. He slammed his fist onto the desk. You should have signed, Ruth, he said. You should have just signed. Outside, the first poster was being nailed to the post of the Red Steer Saloon. The hammer blows echoed down the street like gunshots. Bang! 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 Clay lit a cigar. He watched the smoke drift toward the ceiling. He had locked the doors. Chapter 12. The root cellar smelled of damp earth and potatoes that had been waiting too long for a pot. Eldridge Sample sat with his back against the timber supports, his legs stretched out. He wasn't looking at the darkness. He was listening to the muffled thud of horse hooves above ground. They're circling, Eldridge said. Ruth Clay sat on a crate across from him. She was shivering, not from cold, but from the realization that her father had just put a price on her companion's head that would make Judas reconsider his career path. He won't find us, Ruth whispered. Not here. Webb is smart. Webb is old, Eldridge said. And angry. Anger makes you brave, but it doesn't make you bulletproof. Eldridge struck a match. The flame flared, illuminating the cramped space. He lit the stub of a candle sitting on a barrel. Show me, Eldridge said. Show you what? The deed, Eldridge said. The reason 3 men died in a wash and a barn burned down. I want to see it, if it's worth it. Ruth hesitated. She reached down to her boot, the expensive riding boot that was now scuffed and scratched. She pulled out the folded document, wrapped in oilcloth. She handed it to him. Eldridge unfolded it carefully. The paper was heavy, cream-colored bond, creased from being hidden. He held it near the candle. This deed of trust. Maria Elena Montoya. It was a land grant transfer. Old Spanish law mixed with Texas statutes. It detailed the boundaries of the Double Creek section. The water rights. The mineral rights. And the clause. To my daughter, Ruth Elena Clay, upon the event of my death or her 21st birthday, whichever comes later. Reversion to spouse denied. Your mother didn't trust him, Eldridge said. She knew him, Ruth said. She knew he loved the land more than he loved her. She wanted to make sure I had something he couldn't take. He took the rest of the valley. He bought it, Ruth said bitterly. Or he stole it. But this is the heart. The spring. Without it, the Bar Sea is just dry grass and dying cows. Eldridge refolded the paper. He handed it back. It's a good piece of paper, Eldridge said. Strong. If you get it to a judge who isn't eating your father's steak. The circuit judge, Ruth said. Holloway. He is due in Sundown in 3 days. 3 days is a long time to live in a hole, Eldridge said. We can wait. We have food. Water. We have time, Eldridge said. But your father doesn't. He's squeezing. He's putting bounties on posters. He's locking the town. That means he's scared. Scared of what? Scared of you, Eldridge said. Scared that you'll walk into a courtroom and take his kingdom away with a piece of paper. He looked at the ceiling. Dust sifted down as a heavy boot stepped on the ground above. Someone's up there, Eldridge whispered. He blew out the candle. They sat in the dark. Silence stretched tight. Then a voice. Muffled by the dirt. Check the shed, a man said. Pogue said check the outbuildings. It's empty, another voice replied. Webb said they left. Webb's a liar. Check it anyway. Boots crunched on gravel. The sound of a door being kicked open. The shed door. Eldridge drew his Colt. He didn't cock it. The click would be too loud. He held it ready. Ruth stopped breathing. She sat rigid in the dark. Nothing here, the second voice said. Just tools. What about the cellar? Eldridge tensed. There ain't no cellar, the first voice said. Just a wood pile. Move the wood. The sound of logs being tossed aside. Thump. Thump. They were right on top of the door. Eldridge stood up. He moved to the ladder. If they opened the door, he would have 1 second to fire before they fired down. He would have to kill them both. And then the whole town would know where they were. Hey. Webb's voice. Loud. Angry. Get away from there. Back off, old man, the deputy said. We're searching. You're trespassing, Webb said. And you're moving my winterwood. We're looking for fugitives. You look in the barn you burned down. Webb asked. Maybe they're in the ashes. Move aside, Webb. Or we'll move you. The sound of a shotgun racking. Clack, clack. You move me, Webb said, and I'll move your head into the next county. This is my land. Get off it. Silence. A standoff. Let's go, the first deputy said. He ain't worth it. They ain't here. Pogue said. Pogue ain't here staring at a 10-gauge. Let's ride. Boots retreating. Horses nickering. The sound of hooves fading into the distance. Eldridge let out a breath. He lowered the gun. He saved us, Ruth whispered. He bought us an hour, Eldridge said. Maybe 2. They'll be back. Pogue isn't going to stop because of one old man with a shotgun. He'll come back with 10 men. And fire. He climbed the ladder. He pushed the door up an inch. Daylight spilled in. Webb. Eldridge called softly. Clear, Webb said from the porch. Eldridge pushed the door open. He climbed out. The sun was blinding. Webb was sitting in his rocker, the shotgun across his knees. He looked tired. They're getting pushy, Webb said. They're getting desperate, Eldridge said. Clay put $1,000 on my head. Webb whistled. You're moving up in the world. We can't stay here, Eldridge said. They'll burn you out next. Just to be sure. Let 'em try. We need to move, Eldridge said. Tonight. After dark. Where? Ruth asked, climbing out of the hole. She brushed dirt from her trousers. The Badlands, Eldridge said. To the north. The lava fields. That's rough country, Webb said. No water. No cover. No deputies, Eldridge said. They won't follow us in there. Not with horses. It'll tear the hooves up. And us? Ruth asked. We don't have horses. We walk, Eldridge said. We walk to the county line. We flag down the stagecoach outside of Clay's Reach. It's 20 miles, Webb said. In the heat. Better than hanging, Eldridge said. He looked at Ruth. You have the deed, Eldridge said. That's the weapon. We just have to get it to the fight. I can walk, Ruth said. I'm not soft. You're about to find out, Eldridge said. He looked at the hills. The sun was high. They had hours to wait. Hours to sweat in the cellar while the noose tightened. Back in the hole, Eldridge said. We wait for the moon. They went back down. The darkness swallowed them again. But this time, it felt less like a hiding place and more like a grave waiting to be filled. Chapter 13. The moon was a sliver of bone hook in a black sky, offering just enough light to see the ground, but not enough to tell a rock from a crouching man. Eldridge Sample pushed the cellar door up. It groaned, a low wooden protest that sounded like a shout in the stillness. He froze, listening. The wind hissed through the mesquite. A cricket chirped, stopped, then chirped again. Clear, Eldridge whispered. He climbed out. Ruth followed, brushing the cellar dirt from her trousers. She looked at the charred remains of the barn. It was a black skeleton now, smelling of wet ash. Webb was waiting on the porch. He was a shadow in a rocking chair, the shotgun across his knees. They're back, Webb said softly. He didn't turn his head. He kept his eyes on the ridge line that separated his land from the open range. How many? Eldridge asked. Saw 2 cigarettes, Webb said. About 100 yards apart. They're sitting on the rise, watching the house. Pickets, Eldridge said. Pogue set a perimeter. They're waiting for you to make a break, Webb said. If you ride out, they'll signal. Then the whole town comes down on you. Eldridge looked at the ridge. He couldn't see the men, but he knew the type. Hired guns on a night watch. Bored. Cold. Thinking about the $1,000 and how they were going to spend it. We can't ride out, Eldridge said. Not yet. The horses make too much noise on the shale. So we walk? Ruth asked. We crawl, Eldridge said. We have to open the door. He turned to Webb. Keep the bay in the shed, Eldridge said. If we don't come back in an hour, turn him loose. He knows the way to grass. I'll watch him, Webb said. You just watch your back. Pogue's men are getting jumpy. Jumpy men shoot shadows. Eldridge signaled to Ruth. They moved away from the shack, crouching low in the tall grass. Stay close, Eldridge whispered. Step where I step. And for God's sake, don't sneeze. I am not a child, Ruth hissed. You're loud, Eldridge said. Velvet rustles. Cotton snaps. Move slow. They moved toward the ridge. The ground was uneven, treacherous with gopher holes and cactus. Eldridge moved with a fluid, rolling gait, keeping his weight on his back foot until he was sure of the ground. They reached the base of the slope. Eldridge stopped. He pointed up. A faint red glow appeared in the rocks. A cigarette coal, brightening as the smoker took a drag. There, Eldridge breathed. What do we do? Ruth whispered. Shoot him? Don't make noise, Eldridge said. Gunshot brings the cavalry. We need a nap. He unbuckled his gun belt. He handed it to Ruth. It was heavy, the leather warm from his body. Hold this, he said. If he sees me, if he yells, you shoot. Aim for the flash. You're going up there, unarmed. I'm going up there, quiet. Eldridge drew the Bowie knife from his boot. He reversed it, holding the blade against his forearm, the heavy brass pommel forward. He started to climb. He moved on his belly, pulling himself up through the sagebrush. The rocks dug into his elbows. The dust coated his tongue. He got within 20 feet. The sentry was sitting on a flat rock, his back to the slope. He was looking down at Webb's shack. He had a rifle across his lap, but he was relaxed, leaning back on his hands. He coughed. He spat. "Damn mosquitoes," the sentry muttered. Eldridge inched closer. 10 feet. 5. The sentry shifted. He reached into his pocket for a match. Eldridge rose. He didn't jump. He flowed up from the ground like smoke. He took 2 long, silent steps. The sentry sensed him. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. He started to turn. "Hey." Eldridge clamped his left hand over the man's mouth. He jerked the head back. He swung the knife handle with his right. Thwack. He hit the man behind the ear. A precise, controlled blow. The sentry went limp. His eyes rolled up. He slumped against Eldridge's chest. Eldridge lowered him to the ground. He checked the pulse. Strong. Just sleeping. He took the man's rifle. He took the pistol from his belt. He threw them into the deep brush down the slope. He stood up and waved his hat. A black shape against the stars. Ruth scrambled up the hill. She was panting, clutching the gun belt. She looked at the unconscious man. "Is he?" "He's out," Eldridge said. "He'll wake up with a headache and a story about a ghost." He took his gun belt back. He buckled it on. "One down," Eldridge said. "One to go." "There is another?" Webb said, "2 cigarettes. That means a line." Eldridge scanned the ridgeline to the east. About 50 yards away, another shape was silhouetted against the sky. This one was standing, pacing back and forth. "He's alert," Eldridge said. "Walking the beat. Can we go around him? If we go around, he sees our backs. Or he hears us on the other side. We have to clear the line." "He's walking," Ruth said. "He'll see you coming." "Not if he's looking at you." Eldridge looked at her. He looked at the dirt on her face, the way she held herself. "You want to help?" Eldridge asked. "Yes." "Go down there." Eldridge pointed to a patch of open ground 10 yards below the sentry's path. "Wait until he turns. Then break a branch. Make a noise. Make him look down." "A distraction." "A lure," Eldridge said. "When he looks down, I take him from the top." Ruth nodded. She handed him the Springfield rifle she had been carrying. No, she left the rifle in the barn. She didn't have a weapon. Just her hands. She moved down the slope. She found a dead mesquite branch. Eldridge circled high. He moved along the crest, keeping the skyline behind him so he wouldn't be silhouetted. He got into position above the pacing man. The sentry walked his line. He stopped. He looked at the moon. He yawned. Snap. The sound of dry wood breaking was loud in the silence. The sentry spun around. He leveled his carbine at the darkness below. "Who's there?" the sentry hissed. "Miller." "That you?" He stepped to the edge of the drop. He leaned over, peering into the shadows. Eldridge dropped on him. He landed on the man's back. The impact drove the air out of the sentry's lungs. They hit the ground hard. The carbine flew out of the sentry's hands. The man tried to yell. Eldridge jammed his forearm into the man's throat, cutting off the air. The sentry thrashed. He clawed at Eldridge's face. He was strong, desperate. Eldridge didn't hit him. He applied pressure. He squeezed the carotid artery. "Sleep," Eldridge whispered. The man's struggles slowed. His hands dropped. His eyes fluttered and closed. Eldridge held him for another 10 seconds, just to be sure. Then he let go. He stood up. He wiped the sweat from his eyes. "Clear," Eldridge said. Ruth climbed back up. She looked at the second man. "You're good at this," she said. There was a note of fear in her voice. Practice, Eldridge said. And necessity. He looked north. The Badlands lay ahead. A sea of black lava and broken rock. The door is open, Eldridge said. We have to move fast. Before the relief shift comes out. What about the horses? Ruth asked. We left the bay. We leave him, Eldridge said. Hooves break on lava. Boots just bleed. We walk. Walk to the county seat. Walk to the edge of the lava, Eldridge said. Then we steal a ride. Or we flag the stage. But first, we disappear. He took her arm. Let's go, Eldridge said. Quietly. They moved over the ridge, slipping into the black ocean of the Badlands, leaving two sleeping men to explain to Sheriff Pogue how they let a fortune slip through their fingers without firing a shot. Chapter 14. The lava field was a broken jaw of black rock that stretched for 5 miles before it smoothed out into the hardpan of the basin. It was a place where horses broke their legs and men broke their boots. Eldridge Sample stopped. He sat on a slab of basalt that was still warm from the day's heat, though the air had turned cold enough to bite. We stop, Eldridge said. Ruth Clay stumbled up behind him. She was breathing hard, her breath hitching in her chest. She had lost the velvet riding habit miles back, replaced by the rough clothes from Martha, but she still walked like she expected the ground to apologize for being uneven. Why? She asked. We have to keep moving. Pogue will find the men on the ridge. Pogue won't send horses in here at night, Eldridge said. Not unless he wants to shoot them in the morning. We have until sunup. He uncorked his canteen. He took a sip, swishing the water around his mouth to cut the dust before swallowing. He handed it to her. She drank. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. The dirt on her face was streaked with sweat, turning into a muddy mask. You're good at this, she said. Hitting men in the dark. It's a trade, Eldridge said. Like carpentry. Just noisier. He rolled a cigarette. He didn't light it. He just held it, letting the tobacco smell settle his stomach. Tell me about the land, Eldridge said. The Double Creek. The reason we're sitting on a rock in the middle of nowhere. The reason Pims is dead. Ruth sat down across from him. She hugged her knees. It's beautiful, she said. Green. The water comes out of the limestone cold and clear. It runs all year, even in the drought. That's geography, Eldridge said. I'm asking about the plan. You file the deed. You take the water. Then what? Then I evict him. The words came out fast, sharp, like a knife blade snapping open. Your father. Baron Clay, she said. I kick him off. I take the big house. I take the herd. I take the town. And the people? Eldridge asked. Webb? Martha? The ones he stepped on? Ruth hesitated. She looked at the jagged horizon. Webb is difficult, she said. He's sitting on prime grazing land. If I let him stay, others will want to stay. It sets a precedent. He was there first, Eldridge said. Before your father burned him out. My father was ruthless, she said. But he was effective. You have to be effective to hold a valley like this. You can't be soft. Eldridge chewed on the unlit cigarette. He looked at her. He really looked at her. He saw the bruise on her cheek. He saw the cut on her hand. But mostly he saw her eyes. They weren't scared anymore. They were calculating. They were looking at the dark landscape and measuring it for fences. You sound like him, Eldridge said. She bristled. I am nothing like him. He is a murderer. He killed Mr. Pims. He killed Pims to keep what he thought was his, Eldridge said. You want to evict Webb to keep what you think is yours. The only difference is Pims is dead and Webb is just broke. I am taking back what was stolen. You're taking power, Eldridge said. And power has a way of turning people into the thing they hate. He leaned forward. I saw you in the shack, Eldridge said. When we paid Webb. You didn't say thank you. You looked at the dirt floor and turned your nose up. You looked at them like they were livestock. They were rude, she snapped. The old man pointed a gun at me. He pointed a gun at a Clay, Eldridge said. And tonight, sitting here, I think his aim was right. Ruth stood up. She paced the small circle of the depression in the lava. Her boots crunched on the volcanic glass. You are a hired gun, Mr. Sample. You are paid to shoot, not to lecture. I haven't been paid yet, Eldridge reminded her. I'm working on a promise. And right now, I'm wondering if that promise is worth the price. You want more money? Is that it? When I get the ranch, I'll pay you double. Triple. It's not about the money. It is always about the money, she said. She sounded exactly like Baron Clay in that moment. Arrogant. Certain. Everyone has a price. My father taught me that. He taught you well, Eldridge said. Maybe too well. He stood up. He put the unlit cigarette back in his pocket. You aren't doing this for justice, Ruth. You aren't doing it for your mother. You're doing it because you want to be the one holding the whip. Someone has to hold it, she said. Better me than him. Is it? I will be fair, she said. I will be benevolent. Benevolent dictators are still dictators, Eldridge said. They just smile while they sign the eviction notice. She stared at him. She looked like she wanted to slap him, but she knew he wouldn't let her. What do you want from me? She asked. I am fighting for my life. You're fighting for a kingdom, Eldridge said. Just don't pretend it's a crusade. He picked up his hat. He dusted it off. We have 10 miles to the county line, Eldridge said. And a lot of rocks in between. Are you quitting? I don't quit in the middle of a job, Eldridge said. I'll get you to the judge. I'll get you the ranch. He looked at her one last time. But don't expect me to work for you afterwards, Eldridge said. I don't like the hours. I don't need you afterwards, she said. I'll have my own men. Yeah, Eldridge said. Men like Lefty. Men like Hale. Just with different names. He turned and started walking. He picked his way through the lava, finding the path that wasn't there. Ruth followed. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She just walked, clutching the deed in her boot, planning the furniture arrangement in the big house she was going to steal back. Eldridge realized then that he wasn't saving a victim. He was just changing the management. And in sundown, the management always looked the same in the mirror. Chapter 15. The fire didn't look like an accident. It looked like a statement written in orange script against the black sky. Eldridge Sample kicked the bay horse into a lope, forcing the tired animal down the shale slope of the Badlands. Ruth Clay held on to his waist, her grip tight, her breath hot against his back. She wasn't asking questions anymore. She was watching the destruction of the only sanctuary she had left. They hit the valley floor. The smell of smoke was heavy here, choking out the scent of sage. It wasn't the clean smell of wood smoke. It was the acrid chemical stink of coal oil and tar paper. The house, Ruth yelled over the wind. They fired the house. The shack was blazing. The fire had started on the porch and climbed the walls, eating the dry timber like kindling. The roof was already sagging, shingles curling and popping in the heat. Eldridge pulled up at the edge of the light. The heat punched him in the face. "Stay here," Eldridge said. He slid from the saddle. He drew the Colt. Webb was in the yard. The old man was frantic, swinging a wet blanket at the flames licking the doorframe. He was shouting, his voice a raw croak lost in the roar of the fire. "Martha! Get the buckets! The roof!" Eldridge ran into the yard. He grabbed Webb by the shoulder and spun him around. "Let it go, Webb," Eldridge shouted. "It's gone." Webb shrugged him off. His face was soot-streaked, his eyes wild. "My house. They lit my house." "Where's Martha?" Eldridge asked. Webb stopped swinging the blanket. He blinked, looking around the yard as if realizing for the first time he was alone. She went to the pump," Webb said. He pointed toward the windmill in the dark beyond the corral. "To get water. I told her to get water." Eldridge looked at the windmill. It was spinning fast in the draft created by the fire, clanking rhythmically. There was no one there. "Stay with Ruth," Eldridge ordered. He ran toward the trough. He moved low, checking the shadows, checking the brush. The mud around the trough was churned up. Fresh tracks. Shod horses. He saw a bucket lying on its side, the water spilled and soaking into the dust. And he saw the drag marks. 2 furrows where heels had been pulled through the dirt. "Martha!" Eldridge yelled. No answer. Just the clank of the mill and the roar of the house dying behind him. He knelt. He touched the ground. Bootprints. Heavy ones. 3 men. They had waited by the water while Webb fought the fire. They had waited for the woman. Eldridge stood up. He looked south. He saw them. 3 riders moving fast, silhouetted against the stars on the ridge line. They were riding hard toward town. One of them was carrying a bundle across his saddle. A bundle that was struggling. "They took her," Eldridge said. He walked back to the burning house. The roof collapsed. A shower of sparks shot up, swirling in the heat vortex. Webb fell back, shielding his face. He dropped the blanket. He looked at the pile of burning timber that used to be his life. "Martha?" Webb asked. He looked at Eldridge. He looked like a child asking where his mother went. "They have her," Eldridge said. "Who?" "Clay's men," Eldridge said. "The fire was the trick. They wanted you looking at the house so you wouldn't see them grab your wife." Webb stared at him. The information hit him slow, filtering through the shock. Then his knees buckled. He sat down hard in the dust. "They took Martha," he whispered. "Why?" "Leverage," Eldridge said. Ruth walked up. She stood over Webb. The firelight illuminated her face, showing the horror and the guilt warring behind her eyes. "They won't hurt her," Ruth said. "My father, he doesn't hurt women. Not like that." Webb looked up. His eyes were red, wet. "He burned my barn," Webb said. "He burned my house. And now he stole my wife. You tell me what he won't do, girl. You tell me where the line is." Ruth flinched. She looked at the fire. I didn't know." "You brought this," Webb said. His voice hardened. "You and your paper. You brought the wolf to my door." "We have to get her back," Ruth said. She looked at Eldridge. "We have to ride. Now. Before they get to town." "We can't catch them," Eldridge said. "They have fresh horses. The bay is done. And if we ride into sundown tonight, we ride into a wall of guns." "So we do nothing?" "We wait for the offer," Eldridge said. "Offer?" "Clay didn't take her to kill her," Eldridge said. "If he wanted her dead, he would have left her by the trough. He took her to trade. He watched the riders disappear over the ridge. He wants the deed, Eldridge said. He couldn't find us in the rocks. He couldn't burn us out of the cellar. So he changed the currency. He grabbed something he knows we have to buy back. Webb stood up. He grabbed Eldridge's coat. You get her, Webb snarled. You get her back. Or I swear, I'll put a load of buckshot in you myself. I'll get her, Eldridge said. He gently removed the old man's hand. But we do it my way. No rushing. No panic. He looked at the burning house. There was nothing to save. The timbers were charcoal. The furniture was ash. Is there anything else? Eldridge asked. Anything they didn't burn? Just the root cellar, Webb said. And the shed. Get blankets from the shed, Eldridge said. We camp here tonight. Here? Ruth asked. In the open. They won't come back, Eldridge said. They got what they came for. They'll wait for us to come to them. He walked to the water trough. He picked up the spilled bucket. It was dented. He filled it. He drank. The water tasted of iron and smoke. He looked at the town lights in the distance. Sundown. A name that fit. Baron Clay was sitting in his hotel room right now, or in his big house, drinking brandy and waiting. He thought he had played the ace. He thought he had checkmated the board. He thinks we're soft, Eldridge said to the night. Ruth came over. She stood beside him. She watched the fire die down to glowing embers. He's a monster, she whispered. My father. He's a businessman, Eldridge said. He just deals in a commodity you aren't used to. What commodity? Pain, Eldridge said. He figures if he hurts you enough, you'll sign. If he hurts Webb enough, we'll break. Will we? Eldridge looked at her. He saw the doubt. She was holding the deed in her boot, no, in her shirt now. It was just a piece of paper. But it was the only thing keeping her alive. That depends, Eldridge said. On what you're willing to pay. He walked back to the bay horse. He stripped the saddle. The night settled in. The fire popped and hissed. Webb sat in the dirt, rocking back and forth, holding his shotgun like a child. Ruth sat on a log, staring at the ruin of the home she had helped destroy. Eldridge cleaned his gun. The fire was a distraction. The kidnapping was a move. The game had changed from hide and seek to poker. And Baron Clay just raised the stakes to a life. Tomorrow, Eldridge said. Tomorrow we find out what the trade is. He holstered the Colt. He didn't sleep. He watched the dark, waiting for the messenger he knew would come with the sunrise. The sun came up looking like a bloodshot eye, staring through the haze of the burnt barn. Eldridge Sample sat on a stump near the water trough, shaving with cold water and his bowie knife. He scraped the stubble from his jaw, the steel rasping against his skin. He rinsed the blade. The water in the bucket turned pink, but not from him. It was ash falling from the sky. Webb sat on the porch steps. He hadn't moved in hours. He held the shotgun across his knees, staring at the empty horizon to the south. He looked older than he had yesterday. His face was gray, the lines around his mouth etched deep with a fear he wouldn't voice. Ruth Clay was pacing. She walked a tight circle in the dirt yard, kicking at clods of earth. She still wore the rough clothes Martha had given her, but she wore them differently now. Yesterday, she had looked like a refugee. Today, she looked like a general waiting for a dispatch. He's taking too long, Ruth said. He's letting us stew, Eldridge said. He wiped his face with his bandana. It's a tactic. He wants us to imagine the worst. Imagination hurts more than a whip. My father isn't imaginative, Ruth said. He's direct. Kidnapping an old woman to force a land deal is plenty imaginative, Eldridge said. He won't hurt her, Ruth insisted. She stopped pacing. She looked at Webb. He just wants to talk. Webb spat. He wants to trade, girl. Don't dress it up. Eldridge stood up. He sheathed the knife. He walked to the bay horse and checked the cinch. The horse was rested, but it looked nervous, smelling the char in the air. Rider, Eldridge said. He didn't point. He just looked. A single horseman was coming over the rise to the south. He was riding slow, a white handkerchief tied to the barrel of his rifle, holding it up like a flag. Webb stood up. The shotgun hammers clicked back. Clack, clack. Easy, Webb, Eldridge said. It's the mailman. The rider approached. He was a bar C hand, young, wearing chaps that looked new and a hat that cost a month's wages. He looked nervous. He stopped 20 yards out, keeping his horse ready to turn. That's close enough, Eldridge called out. The rider pulled up. He looked at the burnt barn. He looked at Eldridge. He tried to look tough, but his eyes kept darting to the shotgun in Webb's hands. I got a message, the rider said. From the Baron. Spit it out, Webb said. Then get off my land before I forget about that white rag. The woman is safe, the rider said. Mrs. Webb. She's at the big house. Having tea. Tea, Webb repeated. The word sounded like a curse. The Baron says he's sorry about the fire, the rider continued, reciting a script. Says it was an accident. Spark from a cigarette. It was a torch, Eldridge said. We saw the men. The rider shrugged. I'm just telling you what he said. He wants to meet. To settle this. Family business. He looked at Ruth. He wants his daughter home, the rider said. And he wants the paper she took. The deed, Ruth said. He calls it a misunderstanding, the rider said. He says if you bring the paper to the big house, today, noon, Mrs. Webb can go home. And you can stay. He says he's got a room prepared. And if we don't? Eldridge asked. The rider shifted in his saddle. He didn't say. But he said Mrs. Webb looked frail. Said the excitement might be too much for her heart if things drag on. Webb stepped off the porch. He raised the shotgun. You tell Clay, Webb roared, that if she dies, I'm going to burn his house down with him in it. The rider wheeled his horse. Noon. Don't be late. He kicked the horse into a gallop, riding away fast, the white flag fluttering like a surrender that hadn't happened yet. Eldridge watched him go. Noon, Eldridge said. That gives us 2 hours. He turned to Ruth. She was standing still, her hand pressed against her bodice where the deed was hidden. She wasn't looking at Webb. She was looking at the ground. Well? Webb asked. Let's go. We give him the damn paper, and we get Martha back. Ruth didn't move. Ruth, Eldridge said. She looked up. Her eyes were hard. Harder than he had ever seen them. If I give him the deed, Ruth said, I lose. Webb stared at her. He didn't understand. You lose? Girl, my wife is sitting in a room with a murderer. You hand over the paper, she walks. And the ranch is gone, Ruth said. The water. The valley. Everything my mother tried to save. Everything I fought for. It's dirt. Webb shouted. It's grass and water. She's a person. It's power, Ruth said. Her voice was cold, detached. If I give him the deed, he wins. He keeps the bar C, he keeps the town. He keeps running over people like you. He's doing it right now. Webb yelled. He's holding a gun to Martha's head. He's bluffing, Ruth said. He won't kill her. It would be messy. He needs the public to think he's legitimate. Killing an old woman hurts his standing. He killed Pims, Eldridge reminded her. Pims was a lawyer. Nobody cares about lawyers. Martha is sympathetic. Eldridge looked at her. He saw the calculation happening behind her eyes. It wasn't fear. It was arithmetic. She was weighing the value of the land against the value of Martha's life, and the scale was tipping the wrong way. "You're thinking about keeping it," Eldridge said. "I can't give it up," she said. "Not after all this. If I hold out, if I get to the judge, I can take it all. And then I can help Webb. I can give him his land back. Legally." "Martha will be dead by then," Webb said. His voice was trembling. "You don't know that," Ruth said. "He's using her as a pawn. You don't sacrifice a pawn until you have to." Webb raised the shotgun. He pointed it at Ruth. "Give me the paper," Webb said. Eldridge stepped in. He moved smoothly, putting his body between the muzzle and the woman. "Put it down, Webb," Eldridge said. "She's trading my wife for dirt." Webb screamed. "Move aside, Sample. I'll take it off her corpse if I have to." "You shoot her," Eldridge said. "You destroy the leverage. Clay gets the land by default if she dies. And he kills Martha because she's useless." Webb's hands shook. He looked at Eldridge. He looked at the girl who stood behind him, unblinking. "She's evil," Webb whispered. "Just like him." "She's confused," Eldridge lied. He turned to Ruth. He grabbed her arm. He squeezed hard enough to bruise. "Give me the deed," Eldridge said. "No," she said. "It's mine." "It's a piece of paper," Eldridge said. "Martha is flesh and blood. You remember her? The woman who cleaned the cut on your face. The woman who gave you the clothes you're wearing." "I will compensate her," Ruth said. "When I have the money." Eldridge stared at her. He saw the transformation complete. The scared girl in the ditch was gone. In her place was a baron. A tycoon. A woman who believed that compensation fixed everything. "You aren't saving the valley," Eldridge said softly. "You're just changing the name on the gate. I am doing what is necessary." "Is it necessary to let Martha die?" "It is a risk," she said. "War has risks." Eldridge let go of her arm. He stepped back. He put his hand on his Colt. "We're going to the main house," Eldridge said. "We're going to make the trade." "I won't do it." "You will," Eldridge said. "Because if you don't, I'm going to let Webb shoot you." Ruth's eyes widened. She looked at Eldridge. She looked for the bluff. She didn't see one. She saw a man who had ridden a long way for very little money, and who was tired of people who treated lives like poker chips. "You work for me," she hissed. "I quit," Eldridge said. "Now I'm working for Martha." He looked at Webb. "Lower the gun, Webb. We're going. Get the wagon." Webb lowered the shotgun. He looked at Ruth with pure hatred. "If she ain't walking when we get there," Webb said to Ruth, "you ain't walking out." He went to the shed to hitch the mule to the buckboard wagon that had survived the fire. Ruth stood in the yard. She smoothed her shirt. She touched the deed. "You are making a mistake," she told Eldridge. "We could have won." "We're going to save a life," Eldridge said. "That's the only win that counts today." "And afterwards?" she asked. "When he tears up the deed? When he owns everything again?" "Afterwards," Eldridge said, "is a long time away. Noon is close." He walked to the bay horse. He tightened the cinch. "You ride in the wagon," Eldridge said. "With Webb." Keep your hands where he can see them. I am not a prisoner. You are, until Martha is free. Webb brought the wagon around. The mule looked skittish, smelling the smoke. Ruth climbed onto the seat. She sat stiffly, looking straight ahead. She didn't look at Webb. She didn't look at the burnt house. She looked toward the bar C, calculating her next move. Eldridge mounted the bay. "Let's go," he said. They rode out of the yard. They rode past the ashes of the barn. They headed south, toward the green valley, and the big white house on the hill where Baron Clay was waiting to see if his daughter was really his daughter, or if she still had a heart. Eldridge watched her back. He knew the answer. She had a heart, but it was hardening fast. Just like the land. "Can I send you Wrangler, a Western adventure?" The end. Chapter 17. The gate wasn't built to keep cattle in. It was built to keep poor people out. It was a monstrosity of wrought iron and stone, towering over the dusty road like the entrance to a cemetery for giants. The archway bore the brand, Bar C, in letters big enough to be read from the next county. Beyond the iron bars, a gravel drive wound through a lawn that was unnaturally green, fed by water that didn't belong to the grass. Eldridge Sample reined in the bay horse. He sat in the saddle, looking at the oasis. "He pumps it from the creek," Ruth said from the wagon seat. "Day and night. Just to keep the dust down." "It works," Eldridge said. "I can smell the money from here." Webb spat over the side of the buckboard. "Smells like theft." "Same thing," Eldridge said. Two men stood by the gatehouse. They weren't cowboys. They were guards, wearing dusters despite the heat, carrying Winchesters. They watched the procession approach, the drifter on the tired horse, the old man driving a mule, and the woman in the dirty clothes who owned it all. Eldridge rode up to the bars. "Open it," Eldridge said. The guard on the left, a man with a face like a dried apple, leaned against the stone pillar. He spat a stream of tobacco juice that landed near the bay's hoof. "You got an appointment?" the guard asked. "We got a trade," Eldridge said. "Tell the Baron, his daughter is here." The guard looked at Ruth. He touched the brim of his hat. It wasn't a gesture of respect. It was a mockery. "Miss Clay," the guard said. "Your daddy said you might be stopping by. Said you looked a little rough." "Open the gate, Evans," Ruth said. Her voice was ice. "Or when I take possession, you'll be digging latrines in the south pasture." Evans laughed. He looked at the other guard. "She's got spirit. I'll give her that." "Open it," Eldridge repeated. He rested his hand on his thigh, inches from the colt. "Or I open you." Evans looked at Eldridge's eyes. He saw the flat, blue boredom of a man who had already killed 3 people that week and wouldn't mind making it 5. Evans shrugged. He unlatched the heavy iron gate. He pushed it open. The hinges were well oiled. They didn't make a sound. "Go on up," Evans said. "He's expecting you." "In the dining room." Eldridge rode through. The gravel crunched under the bay's hooves. The drive was a mile long, lined with cottonwood trees that offered shade cool enough to make a man want to lie down and forget he had a gun. Peacocks walked on the lawn, screaming their iridescent nonsense. "Peacocks," Webb muttered. "Useless birds. Can't eat 'em. Can't ride 'em." "They're decoration," Ruth said. "Like everything else here." The main house loomed ahead. It was a 2-story white mansion with columns that looked like they had been stolen from a Greek temple. A wide veranda wrapped around the ground floor, shaded by wisteria vines. It was silent. No dogs barked. No hands worked the flower beds. "It's a fortress," Eldridge said. "He likes his privacy," Ruth said. They pulled up at the foot of the wide stairs leading to the porch. A hitching boy, a Mexican kid with big eyes, ran out to take the horses. Eldridge dismounted. He handed the reins to the boy. "Don't unsaddle him," Eldridge said. "And keep him close." "Si, senor." Eldridge walked to the wagon. He offered a hand to Ruth. She took it. She stepped down. She stood on the gravel, smoothing her rough shirt. She looked at the house where she had grown up. She looked at the windows. "He's watching," she said. "Let him watch," Eldridge said. "Let him see you standing." Webb wrapped the reins around the brake lever. He picked up his shotgun. "Leave it," Eldridge said. "I ain't going in there naked," Webb said. "He's got my wife. If you bring a shotgun into the dining room, he'll have his men cut us down before we cross the threshold," Eldridge said. "This is a parlay. We play by the rules until the rules break." Webb glared at him. He shoved 2 shells into his pocket, then laid the gun under the wagon seat. "I'm keeping the knife," Webb said, patting his boot. "Keep it hidden." Eldridge looked at Ruth. "You have the paper." "I have it," she said. She touched her bodice. "Don't give it to him," Eldridge said. "Not until Martha is outside and on this wagon." "I know how to trade," she said. "Do you?" Eldridge asked. "Because you're trading with a man who thinks he already owns the deck." "He doesn't own me," she said. She walked up the stairs. Her boots clicked on the marble treads. She didn't hesitate. She walked like she was coming home to fire the staff. Eldridge followed, keeping a step behind and to the right. Webb trailed, looking around like he expected the peacocks to attack him. The front door was massive, carved oak with brass fittings. It was closed. Ruth didn't knock. She turned the handle. Locked. "He's making us wait," she said. "He wants us to knock. He wants us to feel small," Eldridge said. He raised his boot. He kicked the door. Boom. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. "Open up," Eldridge yelled. "Delivery." Steps inside. Quick light. The door opened. A butler stood there. He was wearing a black suit, stiff collar. He looked offended. "There is no need for violence," the butler sniffed. "The Baron is at lunch." "We're crashing the party," Eldridge said. He pushed past the butler. They stepped into the foyer. It was cool, dim. A crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, catching the light from the transom window. The floor was polished parquet. A grand staircase swept up to the second floor. "This way," Ruth said. She walked past the parlor, past the library. She headed for the double doors at the back of the hall. The dining room. The doors were open. Eldridge stopped in the doorway. It was a long room, dominated by a mahogany table that could seat 20. The walls were covered in velvet wallpaper and hung with oil paintings of horses and severe-looking ancestors that Eldridge suspected Clay had bought along with the frames. At the far end of the table, sitting alone, was Baron Clay. He was eating. A white napkin was tucked into his collar. He was cutting a steak with a silver knife. A bottle of red wine sat open next to a crystal goblet. Standing behind him, leaning on the sideboard, was Sheriff Pogue. Pogue looked uncomfortable in the fancy room, holding his hat in his hands. And in the corner, sitting on a straight-backed chair, was Martha. She looked small. Her gray hair was coming loose from her bun. Her hands were folded in her lap. She wasn't tied, but a man with a Winchester was standing right next to her. "Martha!" Webb shouted. He started forward. The guard with the Winchester raised the barrel. "Sit, Mr. Webb," Baron Clay said. He didn't look up from his steak. He put a piece of meat in his mouth and chewed slowly. "There are chairs." Make yourself comfortable. I don't want a chair, Webb said. I want my wife. You'll get her, Clay said. When we conclude our business. Clay swallowed. He wiped his mouth with the napkin. He looked down the length of the table at Ruth. You look terrible, Clay said. Those clothes, really, Ruth? You look like a field hand. I feel like one, Ruth said. I've been working. Running, Clay corrected. Hiding in holes. Sleeping in dirt. Is that the life you want? It's the life you gave me, she said. When you sent your dogs to kill me. I sent them to bring you home, Clay said. You were the one who escalated things. You and your friend. He looked at Eldridge. His eyes were slate gray, flat and unimpressed. Sample, Clay said. I hear you're expensive. Inflation, Eldridge said. You killed 3 of my men, Clay said. Good men. Expensive men. They were slow, Eldridge said. And they were standing in the wrong place. And now you're here. In my house. Interrupting my lunch. We're here to trade, Eldridge said. Ah, yes. The trade. Clay picked up his wine glass. He swirled the red liquid. My daughter, for an old woman. It hardly seems fair. Ruth is worth considerably more on the open market. I'm not the trade, Ruth said. She walked to the table. She stood at the opposite end. The deed is the trade. The deed, Clay said. He sighed. That piece of paper. You cling to it like a religion, Ruth. It's just ink. It's water, she said. It's the double creek. It's the life of this valley. It's my land, Clay said. His voice hardened. I paid for it. I fought for it. Your mother, she was a romantic. She didn't understand that land belongs to the man who can hold it. I'm holding it, Ruth said. Are you? Clay laughed softly. You're standing in my dining room, dirty and tired, begging for the life of a peasant woman. That doesn't look like holding. That looks like surrendering. I am not surrendering, Ruth said. I am negotiating. Negotiation implies leverage, Clay said. He gestured to the guard by Martha. The guard cocked the hammer of the Winchester. Click. Martha flinched. Webb groaned, his hands clenching into fists. I have the leverage, Clay said. Give me the paper, Ruth. And this ends. Martha goes home. Webb goes home. And you go upstairs, take a bath, and put on a dress that doesn't smell of manure. And the ranch? The ranch stays mine, Clay said. Until I die. Then, maybe, if you learn how to behave, it goes to you. You'll live forever, Ruth said bitterly. You're too mean to die. I have a constitution, Clay admitted. He held out his hand. Palm up. Expectant. The deed, he said. Ruth reached into her shirt. She pulled out the oilcloth packet. She held it. Let Martha go first, Ruth said. Paper first, Clay said. No, Eldridge said. Clay looked at him. Excuse me? Eldridge stepped up to the table. He stood next to Ruth. We walk Martha out, Eldridge said. To the wagon. When she's on the seat, you get the paper. I don't trust you, Clay said. You walk her out, you ride away. And I'm left with nothing. You're left with the deed in the room, Eldridge said. Ruth stays. I stay. You stay. Clay raised an eyebrow. You're a wanted man, Sample. $1,000. Dead. I know what I'm worth, Eldridge said. If you stay, Clay said, you don't leave. Pogue will arrest you. Or my men will shoot you on the lawn. I'll take my chances, Eldridge said. But the old woman walks. Now. Clay looked at Eldridge. He saw the hand hovering near the Colt. He saw the balance. He looked at Pogue. "Sheriff," Clay asked, "what do you think?" Pogue shifted his feet. "Let her go, Baron. She's just an old woman. She ain't worth the trouble." Clay nodded. He looked at the guard. "Release her," Clay said. The guard lowered the rifle. "Go on, lady." Martha stood up. Her legs were shaking. She looked at Webb. "Come on, Martha," Webb said, his voice thick. "Come to me." She walked across the room. She walked past Clay, giving him a wide berth. She reached Webb. He grabbed her, hugged her hard. "Get her to the wagon," Eldridge said to Webb. "Go." "I ain't leaving you," Webb said. "Go," Eldridge said. "We'll follow." Webb hesitated. Then he nodded. He led Martha out of the room. The front door opened and closed. Eldridge waited. He counted the seconds. He heard the wagon creak. He heard the mule snort. "She's safe," Eldridge said. "Now," Clay said. "The paper." Ruth looked at the packet in her hand. She looked at her father. She threw it on the table. It slid across the polished mahogany. It stopped next to Clay's plate. Clay picked it up. He unwrapped the oilcloth. He unfolded the deed. He put on a pair of spectacles he pulled from his vest. He read it. He checked the signature. He checked the seal. "It's real," Clay said. He smiled. He picked up the deed. He held it over the candle flame burning in the silver stick. "No." Ruth lunged forward. "Stay back." Clay snapped. The paper caught. The corner curled, turned black, then burst into yellow flame. Clay held it until the fire reached his fingertips. Then he dropped it onto his plate. It burned to ash, mixing with the steak juice. "Done," Clay said. He looked at Ruth. "Now," he said, "the matter of succession." He picked up his wine glass. "You disappointed me, Ruth," Clay said. "I thought you were stronger. I thought you would fight harder." "I did fight," she said. "I brought him." She pointed at Eldridge. "You hired a gun," Clay said. "That's smart. But you didn't finish the job. You gave up the leverage to save a peasant." He shook his head. "You're soft," Clay said. "Soft people don't hold land. They lose it." He looked at Pogue. "Sheriff," Clay said, "arrest Mr. Sample. Take him out back and shoot him." "And my daughter?" Clay looked at Ruth with cold, dead eyes. "Lock her in her room until she learns who owns this valley." Pogue drew his gun. The guard raised his rifle. Eldridge looked at the odds. 2 guns on him. Clay sitting at the table. He looked at Ruth. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at her father. Her hand was moving toward the pocket of her trousers. "Soft," she whispered. Eldridge tensed. The meeting was over. The violence was about to begin. Chapter 18. The silence in the dining room wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that happens when the fuse has burned down to the cap. Baron Clay sat at the head of the table, his wine glass halfway to his lips. He was watching Eldridge Sample with the detached interest of a man watching a horse he intends to shoot. Eldridge stood 10 feet away, his hands hanging loose. He could feel the weight of the Colt on his hip, a familiar, heavy anchor. To his right, Ruth Clay stood rigid, her face pale, her hand still deep in the pocket of her trousers. Behind Clay, Sheriff Pogue held a revolver leveled at Eldridge's chest. The guard in the corner had his Winchester aimed at Ruth. "Soft," Clay repeated, savoring the word like it was a fine vintage. "Your mother was soft, Ruth. She thought the land was something you lived with." She didn't understand that land is something you conquer. She protected it, Ruth said. From you. She leased it to me, Clay corrected. For the price of a wedding ring. And now the lease is up. He took a sip of wine. He set the glass down. It clicked against the mahogany. Sheriff, Clay said. Take Mr. Sample out. Use the garden. The soil is soft there. My pleasure, Pogue said. He gestured with his gun. Move, Drifter. Eldridge didn't move. He looked at Clay. You're making a mistake, Baron, Eldridge said. I don't make mistakes, Clay said. I make decisions. You burned the deed, Eldridge said. But you didn't burn the record. The courthouse in the county seat. They have a copy of the original grant. You think burning one piece of paper erases the title? Clay smiled. It was a thin, cruel expression. The courthouse burned down last week, Clay said. Tragic accident. A lamp fell over in the records room. Nothing survived. Ruth gasped. You burned the courthouse. I tidied up, Clay said. Without that paper in your pocket, Ruth, you have nothing. No proof. No leverage. Just a story about a dead mother. He picked up his steak knife. Now, Clay said, go to your room. Before I lose my patience. Ruth looked at him. She looked at the knife in his hand. She looked at the guard with the rifle. She took her hand out of her pocket. She wasn't holding a handkerchief. She wasn't holding a plea. She was holding a derringer. It was small, 2 barrels of .41 caliber death, pearl-handled. A lady's gun. Clay saw it. He didn't look scared. He looked amused. Put that away, girl, Clay said. You'll hurt yourself. No, Ruth said. Shoot her. Clay ordered the guard. The guard hesitated. Shooting a drifter was one thing. Shooting the boss's daughter in the dining room was another. That hesitation was the gap. Eldridge moved. He didn't draw. He kicked the chair next to him. The heavy oak chair skidded across the parquet floor. It slammed into Pogue's shins. Pogue yelled, stumbling. His gun fired, the bullet tearing into the ceiling plaster. Eldridge drew. He fired one shot. Boom. The bullet hit the guard in the shoulder. The man spun, dropping the Winchester. He fell against the china cabinet, shattering glass. Pogue recovered. He brought his gun up. Eldridge fired again. The shot hit Pogue in the gut. The sheriff folded. He dropped his gun. He sat down hard on the floor, clutching his stomach, looking surprised. My dinner, Pogue wheezed. Eldridge swung the Colt toward the head of the table. But he didn't have to shoot. Ruth had stepped forward. She was 5 feet from her father. She held the derringer with both hands, aiming at his chest. Clay wasn't laughing anymore. He was staring at the small gun. He looked at her eyes. Ruth, Clay said. His voice was low, warning. Don't be stupid. I'm not stupid, Ruth said. I'm effective. Clay reached for his water glass. Or maybe he was reaching for the steak knife. Ruth pulled the trigger. Bang. The derringer bucked in her hand. A puff of white smoke obscured her face. The bullet hit Clay in the chest, right through the white napkin tucked into his collar. Clay jerked back. His chair tipped. He went over backward, crashing to the floor with a sound of breaking wood and expensive crockery. Silence filled the room. The ringing in Eldridge's ears was the only sound. Ruth stood there. She lowered the gun. She looked at the empty space at the head of the table. She walked around the table. She looked down. Baron Clay was lying on his back, His eyes were open, staring at the crystal chandelier. There was a small red hole in his shirt front. He wasn't breathing. "He looks small," Ruth whispered. Eldridge walked over. He checked Pogue. The sheriff was unconscious, bleeding heavily. The guard was groaning in the corner. "He's dead," Eldridge said. Ruth looked at Eldridge. Her face was blank. The fear was gone. The anger was gone. There was just a cold, hard clarity. "He reached for the knife," Ruth said. "He reached for water," Eldridge said. "It doesn't matter," she said. "He's gone." She dropped the derringer on the table. It clattered against a silver platter. She looked at the room. The paintings. The velvet walls. "It's mine," she said. "The ranch." "All of it," she said. "The house. The town. The water." She walked to the sideboard. She poured a glass of wine from a decanter. Her hand was steady. She took a sip. "Good wine," she said. Eldridge looked at her. He saw the way she stood. He saw the way she held the glass. She wasn't the girl in the ditch anymore. She wasn't the woman who had cried over a burnt barn. She was the Baron. "You killed your father," Eldridge said. "I evicted a tenant," she said. She turned to him. "Pogue is done," she said, looking at the sheriff. "He won't last the hour. I need a new sheriff. Someone who knows how to handle trouble." She looked at Eldridge. "$500 a month," she said. "And the run of the big house." Eldridge looked at the dead man on the floor. He looked at the woman drinking his wine. "I already have a job," Eldridge said. "What job?" "Leaving," Eldridge said. He holstered his Colt. "You owe me $500, Eldridge said. "Take it from the safe," she said, waving a hand toward the study. "Take 1,000. You earned it." "500, Eldridge said. That was the price." He walked out of the dining room. He didn't go to the safe. He didn't want her money. He didn't want anything from the bar. See. He walked out the front door. The sun was high. The peacocks were screaming on the lawn. Webb was waiting by the wagon. He had seen the commotion through the window. No, the curtains were drawn. He just heard the shots. "Is it over?" Webb asked. "It's over," Eldridge said. "Martha. She's safe. She's halfway home." "And the girl?" "She's inside," Eldridge said. "Redecorating." He walked to the bay horse. He mounted up. "Let's go, Webb," Eldridge said. "This air is bad for your health." They rode down the drive, past the iron gate, leaving the big white house on the hill to its new owner. Eldridge didn't look back. He knew what he would see. A kingdom built on bones, with a new queen sitting on the throne, wiping the blood off the crown. Chapter 19. The gravel drive of the Bar C was a mile long, a white ribbon cutting through the unnatural green of the watered lawn. To the left and right, the peacocks screamed, a sound that grated on nerves already pulled tight as piano wire. Eldridge Sample rode the bay horse at a walk. He kept his hand near the colt, though he knew he'd have to reload before he could fight a war. Beside him, Webb drove the buckboard wagon, the mule flicking its ears at the flies. "They're watching," Webb said. He nodded toward the gatehouse. The iron gates were closed. Evans and the other guard were standing in the middle of the road, Winchesters held across their chests. They looked alert. They had heard the shots from the big house, muffled by the walls maybe, but gunshots have a specific resonance that cuts through the afternoon heat. "They don't know yet," Eldridge said. "They know something happened," Webb said. "They ain't opening the gate." Eldridge pulled up 10 yards from the bars. "Open it," Eldridge said. Evans didn't move. He spat tobacco juice into the dust. He looked at Eldridge. He looked at the house in the distance behind them. "Where's the Baron?" Evans asked. "He's in the dining room," Eldridge said. "He didn't send word to open the gate." "He's indisposed," Eldridge said. Evans shifted his grip on the rifle. "Indisposed?" "We heard shooting, Drifter." Sounded like a disagreement. "The disagreement is settled," Eldridge said. "Open the gate." "Not until I see the boss." Evans cocked the rifle. The other guard did the same. Two levers ratcheting down and up. Clack, clack. "You ain't leaving," Evans said. "Not until we find out if we still have a job." Eldridge looked at the heavy iron bars. He looked at the two men. He looked at Webb. Webb had his hand on the shotgun under the seat, but at this range, against rifles, it was a losing hand. "You have a job," a voice called out. It came from behind them. Eldridge turned in the saddle. Ruth Clay was standing on the veranda of the big house. She had walked out the front door, a glass of red wine in her hand. She was too far away to see her eyes, but her posture was unmistakable. Straight spine. Chin high. The posture of ownership. She walked down the steps. She walked down the graveled drive. She didn't hurry. She walked with the casual confidence of a woman inspecting her fence line. She stopped 20 yards from the gate. "Open it, Evans," she said. Her voice carried clearly in the still air. Evans looked at her. He looked at the wine glass. He looked for her father. "Miss Ruth," Evans said. "Where's the Baron?" "The Baron is dead," Ruth said. The silence that followed was heavy. The peacocks stopped screaming. The wind died. "Dead?" Evans whispered. "How?" "He had an accident," Ruth said. "At dinner. It seems his heart gave out." She took a sip of wine. "Or perhaps it was lead poisoning," she added. "The coroner will decide. But since I own the coroner, I suspect it will be a heart attack." Evans stared at her. He looked at the house. He looked at Eldridge. He did the math. The Baron was dead. The daughter was standing there, drinking his wine. The Drifter was alive. "You killed him?" Evans asked. "I succeeded him," Ruth said. She walked closer. She stood between Eldridge and the guards. "The bar seat is mine," she said. "The land. The water. The payroll." She looked at Evans. "You like your job, Evans?" she asked. "It pays well. $40 and found. Easy work. Standing by a gate." Yeah. I like it." "Then open the gate," she said. "And if you open it fast enough, I might raise you to 50. Evans looked at the other guard. They exchanged a glance. It was the glance of mercenaries, calculating the wind direction. The Baron was dead. Loyalty to a corpse didn't pay the rent. Evans lowered the rifle. 50, Evans asked. 50, Ruth said. And a bonus at Christmas. If you forget you heard any shots today. Evans nodded. I didn't hear nothing but a car door slamming, Miss Clay. He turned. He unlatched the gate. He pushed the heavy iron wings open. They swung wide, screeching on their hinges. Ruth turned to Eldridge. She looked up at him. The sun was behind her, framing her in a halo of light that didn't quite touch the darkness in her eyes. You're free to go, Mr. Sample, she said. You bought them, Eldridge said. I hired them, she corrected. Just like I hired you. It's just business. It's a takeover, Eldridge said. It's a succession, she said. The king is dead. Long live the queen. She looked at Webb. Mr. Webb, she said, you can return to your land. I won't burn the shack. You already burned the barn, Webb said. I'll send lumber, she said. And nails. Consider it reparations. I don't want your lumber, Webb said. I just want to be left alone. Then stay on your side of the fence, Ruth said. And we won't have any problems. She turned back to the house. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't say thank you. She just walked away, sipping her wine, already thinking about the accounts, the cattle, and the town she now owned. Eldridge watched her go. He saw the way she walked. It was the same walk her father had. The walk of a predator who has cleared the territory of competition. She learned fast, Eldridge said. She learned too well, Webb muttered. Eldridge nudged the bay. Let's ride, Webb, Eldridge said. Before she decides she needs to tie up loose ends. They rode through the gate. Evans watched them pass, his hand touching the brim of his hat in a mock salute. He was already thinking about how to spend the raise. Eldridge hit the main road. He didn't look back at the mansion on the hill. He looked west, toward the open country where the only thing you had to own was your horse and your word. He had finished the job. He had saved the girl. But he hadn't saved her soul. That was already gone, sold for a deed and a glass of wine. Sins of the father, Eldridge whispered to the rhythm of the hooves. They don't die. They just change hands. Chapter 20. The smoke from the burnt barn had finally settled into the dirt, leaving a black scar on the earth that smelled of wet ash and lost time. Eldridge Sample stood by the water trough at Webb's place. He was tightening the cinch on the bay horse, getting ready for the long ride to the border. Webb sat on the porch of the shack. He looked older today. The shotgun was leaning against the wall, unloaded. Martha sat beside him, shelling peas into a tin bowl. They didn't look like people who had won a war. They looked like people who had survived a flood and were waiting for the mud to dry. You really leaving? Webb asked. Money's gone, Eldridge said. And the coffee is terrible. Webb cracked a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. You could stay. I could use a hand rebuilding the barn. I'm not a carpenter, Eldridge said. You're a handy man to have around when the neighbors get loud. The neighbors are quiet now, Eldridge said. He looked down the road. Dust was rising. A buggy was coming, flanked by 2 riders. Company, Eldridge said. Webb stood up. He reached for the shotgun. Leave it, Eldridge said. It's a social call. The buggy pulled into the yard. It was a fine rig, painted black with yellow wheels, pulled by a high-stepping trotter. Ruth Clay held the reins. She was wearing a new riding habit, dark blue velvet with silver buttons. A hat with a plume sat at a jaunty angle on her head. She looked pristine. She looked like she had never spent a night in a root cellar in her life. Riding beside her was Evans, the gate guard. He had traded his duster for a vest and a badge. A shiny new sheriff's star. Ruth pulled up. Evans dismounted and held the horse's head. Mr. Sample, Ruth said. Mr. Webb. Miss Clay, Eldridge said. She stepped down. She walked into the yard, her boots crunching on the cinders of the barn. She looked at the ruin. She didn't look guilty. She looked like an architect surveying a site. I brought the lumber, Ruth said. She gestured to the road, where a heavy freight wagon was lumbering over the rise. Pine. Seasoned. And nails. I told you I didn't want it, Webb said. It's not a gift, Ruth said briskly. It's an investment. I'm improving the tenant properties. Tenant. Webb's face reddened. This is my land. The deed says otherwise, Ruth said. I checked the county records this morning. It seems my father acquired the title years ago. Tax lien. He stole it. He bought it, Ruth corrected. And now I own it. But I'm willing to let you stay. As caretakers, you can run a few head of cattle. Keep the grass down. Webb stared at her. He looked at Martha. He looked at the pile of ash. You're evicting me, Webb whispered. On my own porch. I'm giving you a job, Ruth said. It's more than he would have done. She turned to Eldridge. And you, she said. I'm just passing through, Eldridge said. I have an opening, Ruth said. Foreman. The Bar C is undergoing restructuring. I need a man who knows how to handle trouble. A man who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. You have Evans, Eldridge said. Evans is the sheriff, she said. I appointed him this morning. He keeps the peace in town. I need someone to keep the peace on the range. She stepped closer. She smelled of expensive soap and ambition. $500 a month, she said. And a percentage of the beef. Eldridge looked at her. He saw the bruises on her face, covered with powder. He saw the steel in her spine. You killed him, Eldridge said. He died, she said. You pulled the trigger. I made a decision, she said. Our executive decision. And now the valley is quiet. The water is safe. Safe for who? For everyone, she said. As long as they pay the rent. Eldridge looked at Evans. The new sheriff was polishing his badge, looking proud. He was a hired gun who had found a legitimate title. He looked at Webb. The old man was defeated. He would take the lumber. He would take the job. Because he was old and he was tired. You're just like him, Eldridge said. I am better, Ruth said. I am efficient. You're a Clay, Eldridge said. The name changes. The method doesn't. He turned to the bay horse. He swung into the saddle. I'm turning down the job, Eldridge said. Why? She asked. She seemed genuinely puzzled. It's good money. It's power. I don't like the hours, Eldridge said. And I don't like the company. He looked down at her one last time. Watch your back, Ruth, he said. When you build a kingdom on ash, the wind has a way of blowing it down. I control the wind, she said. Eldridge tipped his hat. Good luck with that. He turned the horse. He rode out of the yard. He didn't look back at the shack. He didn't look back at the lumber wagon rolling in. He rode west, toward the open country. He reached the ridge line. He stopped and looked back at the valley. The Bar C spread out green and lush in the distance. The town of Sundown was a smudge of smoke. Meet the new boss, Eldridge said to the horse. Same as the old boss. He touched the colt on his hip. It was the only thing that didn't change. He kicked the bay into a trot, riding away from the politics and the power, heading for a place where the land was still wild enough to kill you honestly.